Hey everybody, what's going on? Rob Cesternino back here to talk about another one of our Survivor 44 tribes. Today, we are going to be trying to talk about, or we're going to, no, there's no tribe. We're doing it. We're doing the thing. It's the Soka tribe. And today, we're going to be talking with a man who is, I know, fired up and ready to go because I just heard his coffee routine. It's Mike Bloom. Mike, how are you?
And Soka it goes, and Soka it goes. By the end of this, I will not be the only one who knows about this fantastic tribe.
Yeah. We're all gonna know about Soka. Okay. So, Soka, you think you can dance?
Well, if they bring back the Mecha challenge, this might be the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, almost 15 years, more than 15 years after the fact, they decided, okay, we have a tribe called Soka. For pun-based reasons, we must bring back the Mecha challenge.
Why not? Why not?
It'd
Okay.
be interesting to see it be done if they continue to do 3 tribes in the pre-merge, how you judge it. I feel like it's worse to be the worst out of 3 tribes in a dance challenge than out of 2.
That would be probably worst case scenario. And so today we will meet the 6 people that we can now say they're a Soka player.
See, this is why I love these tribe names, because we can just keep throwing them on here. I mentioned it
Mm-hmm.
before with Marianne, the Ahsoka of it all with the Star Wars connection, the Sokka
Mm-hmm.
Soka of it all with the Avatar The Last Airbender connection. I
We'll
mean,
find out who's a super Soka today.
exactly. We're going to Soka up the sun. We'll see who perhaps ends up the most burnt at the end of this. That was my alternate opening instead of Billy Joel, but I figured you'd enjoy the Billy Joel reference more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
I mean,
right.
listen, we'll see whether or not they'll be Sokaing up some fire at Tribal Council, because I will say at the outset here, looking at this tribe, this may be our consummate tribe that goes on to win at least a good amount of challenges, fairly balanced across the board. And they have a bit of a curse to break, Rob, because in this new
Orange?
era, well, the green tribes actually have become the new orange
Oh,
tribes, and that the green tribes haven't been doing particularly well in the new era. We saw what happened to Uwa
green is the new
in
orange.
yeah, exactly. Ua in 41 obviously nearly got oolonged. And then while 4 people from Vati made it to the merge in 42, they barely made it there. They nearly went to rocks in the first tribal council. So we shall see if they are able to reverse the curse here and keep themselves from seeing green or being green in the face by the time they actually reach the merge.
Okay, it's not that easy being green in the new era of Survivor. And so we'll see if Soka can change things up. Mike and I got together the other day. We talked about the Tika tribe. We had great fun talking about some of the big personalities that are there. We will have links in the show notes if you want to go back and visit that, just in case you are jumping in. But this is like Kaleidoscope, Mike. You can listen to these in any order.
Right, that was episode purple. This is episode green. There is a
Green.
preferred viewing order, because what I will say, Rob, is I do want to start with some unfinished business
Oh.
from the Tika preview, because information has now come to light since the Tika preview that I do want to just glom on a little bit, because it does make reference to our previous podcast.
Okay, what do you got?
So some stuff has come out, specifically some sites have
Uh-oh.
come out in the interim. We now have official websites and merch for not 1, but 2 Tika members that have come out over the weekend. Carson and Carolyn have both put out their own websites with merch. I'm going to table this because honestly, this is such B&B material that
What a
feel like
tease.
I feel like I'd be doing Liana a disservice by not
Yeah.
talking about it with her. So we're going to get much more into the merch choices, and they are choices within the B&B. I did want to play one thing, though,
Right now with
Rob.
this tribe, we're in merchatory. We don't even know if they have merch or not.
Now, that could be a way to also refer to the event you're referencing, right? Because the merch, Buff is a merch, quite literally. And so they could be in merchatory in that they haven't received their merch yet.
Yeah. Also, I saw some Jeff Probst Grammy videos as I was
Yes.
scrolling Twitter last night. So get that preseason B&B going.
Yeah, on the Instagrammy, Jeff Probst was sitting at a piano for whatever reason. I'm not sure if he knows how to play or if he's going to sit down and play long time by
Yeah.
Linda Ronstadt or anything.
I mean,
but
this man hosted Rock and Roll Jeopardy, okay, Mike? So that he has his pedigree in the music.
he's basically Jerry Lee Lewis. You're completely right. So we definitely have to talk about that. But the one thing I wanted to bring up here, Rob,
Sure.
is that Carolyn posted a bit of an announcement video for her website, and I want you to play the video she recorded because there is a surprise in it
Oh,
that I think those of us that were a part of or listened to the Tika Tribe preview would enjoy very much.
okay. Here, well, let's go ahead and let me see if I can bring that up. Okay, we're gonna play a tweet here on a tribe preview. I feel like that this is like first.
Well, yeah, I don't know. You and I talked about this when I was on the Patron Happy Hour last Friday. This is far and away the most socially active a cast has been on social media, maybe ever. And it seems like more on a united front as well. Though maybe again, this is a bit straying from the path.
Okay. All right. So here's Carolyn Weiger, and she says, "Ah, I'm screaming. Come take a little peek at my shirts and other cute things." Then we got some crying emoji, rainbow emoji, double heart emoji, purple heart emoji, unicorn emoji, and pie. Key lime pie.
Oh, maybe that's it.
CarolineWeiger.com. OMG, I'm here. Okay. And then we're going to listen to Carolyn. Okay. All right. Here we go.
Okay, so I'm so excited to share with everybody my website. I have been working on this stuff. Like I said, if I make it on Survivor, like, of course I'm going to do a website. Of course I'm going to do shirts and as much stuff as I can. So I got a little bit carried away, putting myself on underwear and everything else that I could. But I wanted to do my shirts just with tons of color and just fun. So you don't have to buy anything. Just if you want to just join in on the experience with me, like come take a look. Okay, so I'm so excited.
She pulled her own sound clip.
She pulled her own sound clip. That, of course, is the unforgettable scream that Carolyn let out upon being asked about the new era of Survivor in the interview that I did with her. I absolutely love it. She's doing your work for you, Rob. She isolated the sound for your own soundboard.
Thank you. All right, Mike, let's get into talking about the 6 players from Soka who may or may not have their own merch coming out soon.
Yeah, only time will tell. And who knows, maybe more mimetic sounds will come from this that they can pull. We're just boosting this again, very socially active preseason. So we are talking about the Soka tribe today, which consists of Claire, Danny, Frannie, Heidi, Josh, and Matt. Matt Blankenship, not Matthew. I guess we're going to have to determine how they're going to tell these two guys apart because they both are named Matt and Matthew. Will they go by that short name, long name thing? Their last names are both very long, so I'm not sure if they'll go by it in that way. But either way, we're talking about one of the Matts today.
Okay, who will be king of the Matts? We'll find out in Survivor 44. All right.
Dave Matthews showing up as a last-minute 19th contestant for your pleasure.
A guy who had plenty of merch himself. Okay. All right. Let's talk about person number 1 here today. It is Claire R.
Yeah, so Claire
Rafson.
Well, we're talking about someone who actually is one of the more talked about members of not only the Soka tribe, but of the cast in general. Claire has made a very big impression on the preseason since her announcement. Claire, of course, is a 25-year-old tech investor and venture capitalist currently residing in Brooklyn.
Okay. All right. So, boy, that is some pedigree.
I mean, absolutely. I don't know if her job being mentioned on the show, like, will she be explicit about her job as a venture capitalist? Maybe she'll more so sway towards the tech investor, because I certainly know her mentioning the venture capitalist thing struck a chord with some of the Survivor fandom. I would only imagine in the game where there actually is $1 million to play for, that chord would be struck, much like Jeff Probst at the piano, even louder.
Okay, well, I am definitely my curiosity peaked here with Claire. Anything else you want to tell us about her before we listen to your conversation with her?
Yeah, the one thing, again, I'll set up, as you said, Rob, if people are doing the kaleidoscope order here, let me be your guide. In the preseason, as is accustomed to the new era, I got the opportunity to send in questions. These questions were asked by a producer over video call to a contestant who then answered them. I spliced together their answers with me asking the questions to try to look as seamless of a back and forth conversation as possible. It being done over the internet, there may be some glitches or cuts that happen. I tried to keep them as minimal as possible, so I do apologize for possibly briefly breaking the verisimilitude, but I do believe it turned out to be a pretty seamless effort. So that's essentially what you're getting right now, are my chats with these people preseason.
Okay. All right. So without further ado, let's bring in Claire.
On Survivor.
Sorry, let me take that one more time. Okay.
Why are you here on Survivor?
I am here on Survivor because it's been my lifelong dream. I've been watching since I was 4 years old, so about 21 years now. And it's something that has meant so much to me and that I've always wanted to give it a try. And I finally got the courage to apply this year, and I'm so happy I'm here. I'm also just obviously here to win the million, and I will take nothing less.
What's your history with watching Survivor?
Yeah, so like I said, I am a mega fan. I've been watching since I was 4 years old. Like, I think my most clear memory of Survivor was that I used to have to watch through the keyhole of my parents' bedroom door because I was too young and it was on too late and too scary. But when a contestant I won't name fell into the fire, I was so scared that I burst into my parents' room, kind of blew my cover, and my parents from that moment on let me watch with them every week, in bed with them. And from then on, the past 21 years, I've just been a diehard fan. I've seen every season a couple times. This year, I started going to some of those like Survivor meetups. So I would say I'm a huge fan, and I like to joke, but other than my parents, Survivor basically has been like the most consistent thing in my life. And I just really, really love it.
Livin. Mike,
right.
we didn't give a word.
We were on the same page, though. We mind melded. I think living is a good answer here for a Survivor 43 safe word to use. Yeah, we just jumped in. Maybe it's like the new era, right? You don't make any plans of a safe word. This is all about being unsafe and dangerous.
We're talking about peering through the keyhole.
Yes.
What's going on? Yeah, I think that's a good one. Wow. This sounds like apocryphal. But what an origin story for Claire.
Oh, 100%. Dating herself in many ways. I kind of love the cute yet kind of creepy vibe of like watching Survivor through the keyhole in your parents' door. I'm wondering about like the quality of the architectural style of that house that still had keyholes in the door in 2001 when Survivor the Australian Outback was airing.
Yeah. So, what an amazing story, though.
And now I'm here for a bunch of kids to be watching me through a keyhole one day.
Yeah. So, all right, this could be you on the other side of the keyhole, Claire.
And also, all right, let's get this straight. Claire said she is a mega fan, MEGA fan. Okay, let's not get this twisted.
Oh, she's a fan of the original person that got kicked off of Big Brother 1.
Well, listen, it was around that time, so she could have been watching and loved the action of one Mr. Will Mega.
Okay.
Yeah, unless
but Mega fan, not as big as Uber Super Duper fan.
That's a good question, right? Because like, is a megabyte bigger than a gigabyte? I still don't remember at this point. Do we have to use that sort of level of scaling?
Yeah. Not sure. So, all right, let's get back to Claire. She's a big fan. She goes to meetups, watches through a keyhole.
Do you think she still does? Do you think it's like, all right, this is how I'm used to watching the show. I'll leave the room and I'll watch it. You fill me in on it if everything.
Well, I do think it might have been slightly easier to watch through the keyhole in standard def, like a 4:3 as opposed to the 16:9.
Yeah, people might compare actually watching, because I know nowadays, whenever it comes to the essential question of like what seasons should I watch, some people are like, I can't do the standard definition seasons. Maybe it's because they compare it to watching through a keyhole.
Okay, back to Claire.
Give me one Survivor winner and one non-winner who you identify with the most.
That's such a hard question because I feel like I see myself as somebody who identifies with little pieces of a bunch of different people. But I'd say right now how I feel, one of the winners I identify with the most is Natalie Anderson. I just absolutely loved her game. I love her attitude. I love how kind of petty she is, but in a really smart way. Like, she was so strategic, so figured out the numbers and wasn't afraid to make a move at the right time, whether that was pretending like she got the vote wrong just to get rid of somebody she wanted to get rid of, or waiting like 8 weeks to get out somebody and avenge her ally. I think she's just so iconic, and I think I would play kind of similarly with my head and my heart. And then a non-winner, it's so hard. And I feel weird even comparing myself to like anyone, but I want to say Courtney Yates. I just absolutely think she's an iconic queen. Just her sass, her honesty, and just her ability to get by doing like the bare minimum really does remind me of myself. I think I might be like a little bit nicer, but I just absolutely really like watching China. I was like, I feel this girl and her energy. I'm also like incredibly tiny and don't see myself being super useful in challenges. So I think that also makes me feel like her.
Living. Yeah, so back in the China reunion, right? Jeff was talking about how a bunch of kids approached Courtney on the street and talked about how much they associated with her. That might have been Claire as she's holding up a door, walking down the street, looking at her through a keyhole.
Yeah. People, always love Courtney. Natalie Anderson has really become a popular person to compare yourself to among the Survivor players.
Not to spoil, the remaining 13 or 11 interviews that we have, but I would say like out are Parvati and Tony, in are Jeremy and Natalie. Those are far and away the two Survivor contestants in these interviews that people compare themselves to the most.
Yeah. Andrea had a good run also. I feel like we have not heard much Andrea in the last in the new era.
Yeah, we had, I think it was Helen, I believe. Oh, no, Sarah said as Andrea last time, but I agree. Yeah, she hasn't been here for a while. I mean, you talk about, again, Rob, that sense of self from last time. Claire certainly has that. She was upfront in saying, I'm very small. She'll give her height later on here. I'm not very good at challenges. Some people might take that as a death knell, but to quote one of Courtney's closest allies, I don't know about that. I feel like here's what I'll say. If Soka goes to tribal council in the first, 2 episodes, I could see Claire becoming a target. Once they sort of make it past that and challenges become less of a thing and she has more of a footing socially and a group of people to ensure herself with, no matter what the challenge finish may be, I don't see it being as much of a problem, both to her and anyone who might be considered a liability.
Yeah, I don't think that you need to be like a dominant challenge performer to even make it to the final 3 in the new era. I mean, Romeo has been to a final 3 in the new era. Erica
Courtney made it to a
final
final 3.
3. Yeah, Courtney herself made it to a final 3.
She made it to. She won an immunity. Did you win an immunity, Jean Robert?
Oh, okay. All right, shots fired. All right, back to Claire.
What's your favorite moment in Survivor history?
I gotta say, and I think this is a bit of a cop-out because it's many moments, but I think my all-time favorite moment was just Cook Island. Basically, I'd say I loved the I-24 just dominating, and specifically my favorite moment was every time they sent Candace to Exile Island. I thought it was like the most fun, exciting underdog story, watching them come back and also watching them do it in a really fun and petty way, sending her to exile so many times.
What's one life experience you feel has prepared you most for the game?
One life experience that has prepared me most for the game, I think it's hard, so I'm going to cheat on this one. I think for me, just living has been that life experience. So for reference, I'm this loud as hell, 5'2", queer Black Jewish girl. And so for my entire life, everywhere I've been the odd one out, and I've stuck out like a sore thumb. So whether it was like in preschool, in college, now in corporate America, I have been living this game of Survivor for myself, where I've socially and strategically had to be this odd one out and find a way to get people on my side, to do the things that I want to do, to be really smart and intentional about reaching my goals. And so far it's worked out pretty well. But I feel like, honestly, just being so different in this world that can be kind of homogenous where I am has really prepared me to go meet 17 random strangers and to make them like me enough that they'll keep me around until I stab them in the back.
Living. Yeah. Claire, sounds great, but you need the butt tattoo.
Yeah,
not
with
real.
The G,
not real.
though.
Yeah,
Has
not
Cody
real.
ruined that word for us, that when somebody just says the word living, we're like,
Maybe in that context, but no. I mean, sounds like a great, uh, the test track to get ready for what the Survivor experience is.
Yeah, considering that the onus of the show is 18 people from different walks of life forced to make a society together, considering she herself has like walked this earth for 25 years, not necessarily fitting in anywhere. She almost probably has a routine that she goes through within any sort of new social setting. So I really like the confidence that Claire is bringing here. And I think that is going to pay off as well. I don't think that she's one of these contestants that's just going to talk a big game and then immediately get shut down on these first few days. Again, if Soka loses the first immunity challenge, maybe, but I just feel like Claire has such probably maybe some of the most life experience out of this entire cast of just trying to put herself within these situations and have people ingratiate themselves to her when maybe they wouldn't originally, just based on the optics of the situation. I can't imagine that success not being repeated here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's hear more from Claire.
What excites you the most about the new era of Survivor?
I don't know if the new era excites me as much as it like absolutely terrifies me. You know, being such a fan of the game, I feel like I knew Survivor up until season 40. I had studied it, I'd seen every twist and turn. And so the new era is like insane to me because it's something that I haven't studied and that I don't know that well. So I think both frightened but super excited by the idea that we're going to kind of chart our own path and like our own course, and really the fact that things are going to be new and exciting and different than what I've just been seeing on TV my whole life. So can't wait.
What do you think people will perceive you as?
Yeah, so I think that, and this is what's kind of happened my whole life, especially my tribe mates, I think they're going to perceive me as this like fun-loving, kind of chill, goofy, young girl. Like I've been walking around Ponderosa or pregame in like all pink with my hair and my cute little buns and all my kind of just like smiling and living my life. So I think people will view me as just like a nice kind of harmless young small girl, which is exactly what I want them to see. I think the audience will start to realize sooner rather than later that there's like a bit more going on upstairs, and that, you know, I am a little bit more than I put out there when it comes to being like pretty strategic, pretty thoughtful, and I like to think kind of smart.
What?
Living. Mike, that is interesting that I guess maybe Tori touched on this a little bit a year ago, but you know, production gets to pick what you wear in the game, but you do get to pick your own clothes for Ponderosa, and so that if you are trying to signal something to the other players, that is interesting to like have some thought about the kind of clothes that you are trying to wear if you want to project an image.
Completely agree. I remember clear as day a conversation I had with Kelly Kim on the island during the preseason of 39, where she talked about purposely wearing like a goofy cat sweater on the plane and like walking around wearing not wearing glasses at Ponderosa with like her hair kind of messy. Again, just to like show herself off as kind of nerdy, schlubby, not someone that should be estimated for her intellect necessarily. It is interesting, though, that we do have the benefit of listening to Tika, where you have people like Helen and Sarah also saying, right, like, I hope to be perceived as the young, bubbly girl. Do you think that we're just going to get like 6 young, bubbly girls being perceived this entire season? Or do you think some will come out in the wash?
I think it's one thing to be perceived as that when nobody's talking. But then I kind of feel like Survivor, the great thing about that is that you can only pretend to be somebody you're not for so long. I mean, I think that that is the beautiful thing about Survivor, where you really are put out into this world with nothing but the clothes on your back, and sometimes not even that. And so basically, I think it a lot of times like some version of your truest self comes out in like the stress of the Survivor game. And so if you are like presenting as something, I think that that ultimately fades pretty quick.
Well, it does help Claire here that in these interviews, at least, she is fairly giggly. And so if she does bring that amount of glee, for lack of a better term, She'll be able to make it to the regionals. That is the merge, perhaps. If people are able to say like, oh, she's happy-go-lucky, she's giggling all the time, she just wants to be there.
Okay. Let's hear more from Claire.
What type of player are you looking for in an alliance?
In an alliance, I think, above all else, I'm looking for total trustworthiness, like trust. I don't even care what they look like, who they are, as long as we trust each other and I know what to expect about them and how we can play together. I think a really great alliance that I'd be looking for is honestly like a couple people who might think that they're like smarter or better at the game than me and might perceive me as less of a threat that they can just kind of bring along. I love to be the one in the background pulling the strings and like feeding them ideas while they execute my devious plans. And then when it comes down to it, people that I know that I can beat either at the end or who I can stab in the back before they stab me.
How eager will you be to look for advantages in the game?
I will be incredibly eager. That being said, to look for advantages, but that being said, one of my big goals and something that I've been trying to practice is just like breathing and taking a step back, because I know that the target, you can get painted on yourself for being that eager one who goes out and looks. And although it's a 26-day sprint, you need to know when to peak, right? And for me, somebody who like, I'm weak, I'm small, I'm going to be an early target if we want to keep the tribe strong. I really need to play it cool and make sure that people trust me and think that I'm somebody that they can work with long term. So I'm hoping to be able to quell that super fan desire to day one go look for an idol.
Living. Look, Mike, Claire needs to know when to peak at the right time. And so by her Survivor origin story, she has learned through a lifetime of peaking.
Exactly. Be the keyhole, not the a-hole. I also love this idea of her talking about her practicing just breathing. Do you think she knew that last gasp had come up in Survivor 43 and might again in Survivor 44?
Smart. That's smart.
Though I think actually after how it happened in 43, I do not think they're bringing that challenge back again. Maybe that's a bit of a hot take.
Yeah, I think that they'll probably maybe bring back some other classic challenge, but probably not last gasp 2 in a row. Okay. Back to Claire.
What's the one thing you told yourself you wouldn't do in this game?
So that's I've told myself a few things, but to be honest, I'm really open to doing just about anything if it means surviving another day and getting closer to the million. There are a couple lines I won't cross, like I don't want to betray my loved ones and my family at home. But to be honest, as long as I come home feeling good about myself and my friends and family still like me, everything's on the table.
What's the best advice you received before coming out to play?
The best and most consistent advice I got from all of my friends and family was to just chill out. And I think for me, that's really what I need to do. I'm a super fan. I'm somebody who's a lot in my head. I'm very, very strategic and a bit controlling at times. And so for me, my biggest threat is going to be myself and the things that I like, the situations I put myself into by thinking too much. So I think the best advice I got was really just like, breathe, calm down, take it day by day, and just like experience this experience. Like I really want to be present. And I think that was really good advice.
What celebrity or fictional character would you want to come out for a loved one's visit?
Thinking about it, I'm going to be really like stressed, tired, in need of a really good hug and just like a good pep talk. And I don't know why, but like the first people that come to mind are either Beyonce or Michelle Obama. But I think either or would be great. I just want like a really good long hug from a like kind of like maternal figure, and somebody who will kind of give me that pep talk to get me through the rest of the game.
I mean, if you can get a hug from Beyonce or Michelle Obama, you got to take it.
Yeah, but I'm imagining a Jenna Lewis-esque moment where Jeff says, Claire, we were going to bring Beyonce out, but she's stuck in traffic. She'll make it here eventually, maybe. That was a
Mhm.
Grammys reference, Rob,
Mhm.
in case you weren't onto it.
I'm sorry. I have them DVR'd, Mike. I'm gonna
Oh, I don't
be
want to spoil it for you. She does
catching up.
make it. She does make it to make history.
Yeah. Okay. Mike, some interesting other things I've peeked in the bio for Claire. She has an interesting bedtime ritual.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So basically, she talks about. I'm just trying to find the point that you are speaking about. Oh yeah, she listens to the Hunger Games audiobook every night to fall asleep, which says a lot about her, right? That
Mhm.
in a book series that is all about children just tearing into each other for their pursuit of fame and fortune, that's something that puts this girl to sleep. I
Yeah.
don't want to know what wakes her up.
So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. She also talks about how the accomplishment she's most proud of is when COVID hit her first year of college. She led her office in a fundraiser to raise $150,000 in 2 weeks for the NYC community. Like,
Mhm.
Claire is a hustler, I think, as her job sort of ends up pretending here. And I think this is going to pay off really well for her. I think on the one hand, Claire has the chance to do really successfully in this game. Because again, I just think the way she's coming across in these interviews, right? She's laughing
Mhm.
to initially respond to everything here. She does have this bubbliness that she is putting forward, and it doesn't seem completely unnatural to me. But then she comes through with that arrow as sharp as Katniss Everdeen's to be like, oh, I'm also incredibly strategic, and I won't do anything stopping me from winning this game. That makes me think she does have a head for strategy, and I think could be that type of perfect sweet spot of a person who may be underestimated as just, oh, here's this person that's along for a good time, maybe not a long time, but then is like able to make those decisions behind the scenes. What could work against her is the optics of the winners that came before her. Because again, Survivor 44 saw all of Survivor 41 and 42 before going out. Erica and Marianne, the winners of both those seasons, were smaller women.
Mhm.
Do you think people could possibly look at someone like Claire and say, okay, maybe we do need to keep an eye on her because we don't want, 3 times or it's a trend. Do we really want a third person possibly running things behind the scenes with their small stature?
So I would say that I don't. I feel like if I was somebody coming into Survivor 43 or 44, I think that I might take the lesson from the wins that I had seen in the new era as maybe people, and certainly Marianne much less so, but people who were sort of like more in the background in terms of like not being people who were sort of like front runners ending up coming in and winning the season at the end. And Marianne, certainly like made her impact felt at the very end of the game. I don't think that Claire is going to be somebody who's under the radar. While she might be small in stature, I see her as being somebody who is going to be, a real power player in the game. Her fundraising background is very interesting to me. I think that the act and the idea of fundraising is not necessarily like dissimilar from
Mm-hmm.
building a coalition of, okay, here's what I want to do. What can you bring to this? Here's what's in it for you. And so I do think that she is going to be somebody who I think is going to be while again small in stature, I think that she could be a very powerful presence in the game.
Yeah, and that could be something that ends up working against her once people realize that. I totally agree that I could see, as much as she's trying to tell herself, don't get too far out there. You love to plan, but don't scheme and plot too much, to quote a famous rule. I could imagine herself almost betraying that. And if she does get some runway under her, feeling like, okay, I am going to be the person that's going to be out front trying to make all these plans happen. And we talked about this last time that the new era of Survivor is that those people oftentimes do not make it to the final 3. And so I could definitely see a situation where Claire is perceived as the big person, even though her size may be anything but. And then as a result, she ends up being the number 1 target.
Okay. Mike, anything else about Claire?
No, I have really high hopes for Claire. I think, again, she has a very good head for the game combined with an exterior and a personality that, to me, at least initially, does not suggest that. We talk a lot in Australian Survivor about this idea of like parabolic women, as Shannon Gus likes to say, that there are people in Survivor who, on the Australian version, may get voted off early due to just the pure physicality of the challenges. But once they make it to the merge and all the threats get picked off, they have a very good chance of making it to the end and possibly winning. Claire sort of reminds me of that. Again, if Soka goes to these first few TCs and they're relying specifically on physical performance, Claire may be up for elimination. But I feel like if she survives that, I think she survives a long, long time. To the points we made, I don't know if it's going to see her making the final 3, but I could see her, no matter what, being a very big strategic force in this season.
Okay, I'm really interested to see how she fits in with the rest of the tribe. When we have these previews that we do, we meet one person and then now everybody else is going to fall in line with now how do they mesh with Claire. So she is really, our anchor here as we start to begin to, at least from my perspective, to understand the Soka tribe.
Well, let's move on from the anchor of the Soka ship to the mast, or should I say the Masta. We're talking about Danny Massa, a 32-year-old firefighter still in the Great Empire State. We're going from Brooklyn to the Bronx.
Okay. All right. We're switching boroughs. Tell me about Danny Massa.
Yeah, so Danny, coming in as a firefighter, used to a lot of situations that scare him. Survivor is no different, but he thrives off of that. And he certainly has an initial impression that he gives off that he will be very upfront about. It is very much the opposite of the way Claire is presenting herself.
Okay. Anything else you want to set up before we listen to Danny himself?
No, I don't believe so. I talked about, the parent contingents that exist in this season. I believe we have 5 parents. Danny is not a parent, but he'll explain right now. He does live with his sister and their children in like a 2-apartment duplex kind of situation. So it kind of does feel like almost like a surrogate parent.
Okay, here's Danny.
Why are you here on Survivor?
I'm here because me and my sister and her kids started watching the show. They ran down. We lived together in a 2-family house. They ran down to my apartment and they said, "Uncle, you got to come watch the show. And you need to be on this show." That was maybe between 10 and 15 years ago. And we've been watching it religiously every week since. And my niece is in college now. She filled out my application and did everything for me. And the whole concept of the show terrifies me. And I'm someone who's drawn to things that terrify me. So here I am.
Give me one Survivor winner and one non-winner who you identify with the most.
I identify with Jeremy Collins the most. I think he does a beautiful job of being affably cunning. So he's cunning, he plays the game, but he does it in a way where, who doesn't love Jeremy? My mother loves Jeremy, like absolutely. My mom donates money to St. Jude in all of his seasons, so I give him good luck. So I definitely relate to him. And a loser.
Wow, Danny.
This memory always pops out in my mind of when Christian took out Alec in the individual immunity in David versus Goliath. And I like Alec, he's a cool dude, but I think there's a telltale sign in this game. This game has it's like alive. If you're arrogant, Survivor is going to humble you. And I think that happened there. And so that's a memory I always remember. So big ups to Christian. That was like a beautiful moment when he outlasted him. Both of them were absolutely incredible, but Christian got the nod on it.
Living. Yeah.
Yeah. I am mystified by Danny's mother for a number of reasons. First, he talks in his bio actually about a very emotional story about how, his mother had his sister in the 70s when she was 18 and had the courage to leave her physically abusive husband. And then she, worked 2 jobs until she ended up meeting her new husband after that. So to do all that and then to say, okay, to help Jeremy along, let me put some good juju out there in the Survivor universe,
Mhm.
good Jude, perhaps, and donate to St. Jude's.
Well, yeah, is that what she does? Is it that she donates to the St. Jude's cancer hospital? That's to give good karma to Jeremy Collins, or is it like
Yeah, but like, I don't know.
is there can you donate to the saint specifically? Like
Yeah,
at
it's
the
like you like
church?
so like she goes to a church and like puts money at the hearth
Hey,
of
look,
St.
look,
Jude.
it worked one time. Okay. I'm not going to question it. Although I will question that, Danny refers to the non-winners as the losers.
Now, the interesting thing is that his mother is theoretically doing this for something that has already happened. This isn't saying, "Oh, I hope that
She
bring me
reads the Redmond rumors, like when it's a returning player season.
Red
And second
Mama."
chances, Mike, that, that might have been the time that it really worked, where she
That's true.
voted for
Once the
him.
cast got confirmed, she's like, "All right, St. Jude's, you're getting a windfall of cash." That's just so interesting because, like, I don't know. Am I ignorant? Does Jeremy have a connection to St. Jude's at all?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I mean, maybe because his whole story on Second Chances was about having a child, and St. Jude's obviously is most well known for like its children's hospital.
Look, this is a good question for, Danny. I don't know what the format will be, but maybe he can just answer it on social media.
Yeah, I'm just so intrigued by it because actually his social media is breathed with Danny, which is what Claire needs to do. So I think actually they'll work really well together. I'm just so intrigued by it because listen, when I am my most OCD, my most superstitious, like I'll admit if I have something coming up that I really want to go well, I
Mhm.
will go out of my way to do like incredibly nice and overly generous things to try to like build
Oh,
up a repository of good karma to be like, hello, people out there. I did this thing. Hopefully, you can repay me in kind. So I'm sort of in line with Danny's mom's thinking. Again, that issue is I'm usually doing it for something that happens in the future, not something that already happened, but I haven't seen it yet.
interesting. Okay. Wow. Mike, this is fascinating. And
Yeah, Pod Friends Part
Pod
2 interview.
Friends.
Who would
Yeah,
have thought?
another one. Okay. All right. Let's go back to Danny.
What's your favorite moment in Survivor history?
Oh, I have to bring it back to it. That's actually my favorite moment when Goliath got slayed by David, and Christian, Christian outwilled him. And then a close second is when Jeff threw everybody for a loop, and be able to go back in time with Erica season 40. I
Wow.
love that. I love that the game of Survivor is just constantly evolving. It's a live game. It's just not a stagnant. Complacency kills.
Yeah, living. Oh, wow. Danny is the one. We found him.
Well, we'll find out next time. There may be the two.
Okay. Look, maybe that's why you get on the show.
Well, I think it does, though.
You know what I love? The hourglass. Like, oh, okay.
You had me at hourglass.
This guy. Oh, he gets it.
Oh, do you think actually Danny's mom smashed the hourglass and went back in time to make Jeremy win?
Maybe. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does feed into the larger sense of what Danny is going to be talking about, which is that when you ask Danny, what's your plan for this game? Danny says, I have no plan. He really has this idea that, again, the game is alive, that the game is not only a foot, it's a hand, it's a head, it's a heart, it's an entire living being. And so you can't really do anything because you have no idea what's going to be thrown your way. And I think the hourglass is a very prime, if unfair example of that.
Yeah, well, this is a real keyhole into who he is as a player.
Yeah, and now maybe we'll open the door on Danny this time.
Okay. All right, back to Danny.
Every facet of life, and that just showed, dude, you can't sit back and just cruise through. Oh, Survivor is what it is. No, it's constantly changing, and that flipped everything upside down.
What's one life experience you feel has prepared you most for the game?
It's hard to. I don't think anything could really prepare you for this game. I think that if you go in with that attitude that you're prepared somehow, you're gonna kind of be surprised when things don't go your way. I'm going into this game expecting things not to go my way. When things start to get difficult, when things go, oh man, I can't believe that happened, I'm gonna remember, oh, you knew this was gonna happen. This is Survivor. It's never gonna go according to plan. So I think that's what's going to prepare me. And I think it's just from, being a little bit older now. In my 20s, I would probably say I'm a boxer, I'm a firefighter, I'm mentally tough, I'm going to do this. And now that I'm a little bit older, a little bit wiser, I'm going to go in and say, none of that's going to help. The only thing that's going to help me is that I am a little wiser. And I know that whatever's coming at me is going to knock me in my ass. And just got to roll with the punches and have a good time.
What excites you the most about the new era of Survivor?
What excites me most about the new era of Survivor is that it's just like a fight. It's just like life. It's just like anything you're going to approach is that you can go in with a game plan and pull like Mike Tyson. Everybody got a game plan until they get punched in the face.
Heard that.
And this game's going to punch you in the face. So I find that exhilarating. I think that it brings out the best in human beings. You can't be stagnant, and you can't be complacent, and you got to be ready to adapt at all times, just like life. And Survivor is to show that it's a study of the human condition. So what better way to show the human condition than having to adapt, improvise, adapt, and overcome at every single corner. And Jeff's going to do that. And, we're not going to be able to see season 43. I'm sure he threw the ringer at those dudes. And, he's going to do the same thing to us.
What do you think people will perceive you as?
I think that people originally perceived me as I potentially like a bro-ish frat boy jerk. I kind of, whatever, I work out a little bit, and I've been told before I look like I'm perpetually stuck in a dude's night out. So once they get past the fact that I look like an insignificant character in like American Pie 5, I think they're going to see him a lot deeper. And I'm a good dude.
Living.
Mike, what did he say? He looks like he's perpetually stuck in a guy's night out.
Exactly, in a dude's night out.
Dude's
Which is
night
I
out.
guess, listen, you're watching Groundhog Day right now. That's Dude Hogs Day.
Yeah.
No, sounds like a very different type of movie.
Yeah. Dude Hogs Day.
But yeah, I mean, Danny brings up a salient point here. There are, I would say, only a few of these kind of buff guys on this season. Danny happens to be on a tribe with one of them. We'll get to them later on. But, I don't know if he's necessarily wrong just looking at this picture. But what is interesting is that in his bio, and he talks about this in his 1-minute video as well, he's consistently talking about being kind. Just 3 words to describe yourself: kind, passionate, determined, pet peeves, bullies, and whining. What's the accomplishment you are most proud of? Being kind, always number 1, being a compassionate fireman. And he talked in his video about the fact that, again, he feels like he almost has to overcompensate knowing that first impression with some niceness. It's interesting to see how this, again, juts up against Claire, who's like, okay, I know I'm being perceived this way, so let me steer into the curve. Danny is actively steering away from this curve, because this is the case where the way you are being perceived could actively harm you in these initial days of the game.
I don't know if it helps or hurts Danny, but like the broy Dude Hogs Day guy doesn't get cast on Survivor anymore. I mean, that even our very athletic types have a sensitivity and an introspection. I mean, look no further than Mike Turner in season 42. But even Jonathan has a degree of introspection that he was Omer highlighted early in the season in season 42. So that guy just doesn't get cast for Survivor, but then because that guy isn't cast, does Danny, well, he's the closest thing to the dude bro, so he gets sort of that stereotype.
And I do think, unlike someone like Bruce, I do think he'll have the ability to overcome that first impression, perhaps by being overly kind in those first few days, really taking Julie Chen Moonvez's final words to heart, as opposed to someone like Bruce, who we talked about last time, right? Was yeah, I know I may be perceived as arrogant because I know what I'm doing. Danny's more so saying, like, you may look at me and perceive arrogance, but once you actually talk with me, you'll find out I'm far from it.
Okay, let's go back to Danny.
What type of player are you looking for in an alliance?
This goes back to like, not having being locked into any single like, set form of how to play. I think you have to read people. If you go out searching for like this specific perfect alliance number, there's no such thing. I mean, like you had like Rob and I think Philip, who was like tailor made for him. But that's not gonna happen. You're gonna have to just read people, and you're gonna hope you're gonna have somebody who less about what they are and how they view you. Do you want an alliance member that thinks, hey, Danny's great, but I can beat him, and like in the final three, people are gonna vote for me over him. So I mean, that's what you want in an alliance member, somebody who thinks they could beat you.
How eager will you be to look for advantages in the game?
I'm gonna be very eager, but it's just like, I mean, now you're in the game. So like, I'm the same guy who's watching people and say, no, what are you doing? You can't be looking for an item yet. You can't be doing this yet. And now, it's time to like cash in the checks I wrote, talking so much smack to, former players. So I'm gonna be very eager to look for advantages, look for idols. I'm gonna do my best to hold off until a time where it is gonna be not perceived negatively by my tribe, because that's a death sentence. Everybody knows that. That's Survivor number 101. Since they brought idols into the game, that's never changed. You don't want to be the guy who gets caught or lady who gets caught looking for idols.
What's the best advice you received before coming out to play?
The best advice I received before coming out to play was enjoy the journey. Do not be attached to the results, because if you have the illusion in your head that you can go out and that this is entirely about skill and you're going to make no mistakes, and that as long as you don't make any mistakes, you're going to win $1 million. I think that's preposterous. Like, I think that the way you win this game is you be in the moment, you enjoy the journey, you play your ass off to win. Like, you try to get every advantage, you try to get every idol. You try to, blindside, kick, scream, bite, however you need to do to win. But at the end of the day, if you're not enjoying the journey, like, this is once in a lifetime. People kill to be on the show. So that's the way you win the game. Enjoy it, ride it out.
Can you come up with your own weird phrase that could be said at a challenge to unlock an idol?
Oh man, that's a great question. All right, yeah. Sometimes if I don't want to stop, do I have to boogie oogie oogie?
What celebrity or fictional character would you want to come out for a loved one's visit?
All right, if I could have any celebrity or fictional character, I would take Harry Potter. That's I'm a Harry Potter nerd.
Hot take.
And yeah, I would come out and meet the chosen one.
Okay.
Good news, Danny. Harry Potter's playing. He's just on a different tribe.
Yeah. So what did he say? I don't want to, but if I have to, I will boogie oogie oogie.
Sometimes if I don't want to stop, do I have to boogie oogie oogie?
Sometimes if I don't want to stop, do I have to boogie oogie oogie? Boy, maybe we should make boogie oogie oogie the safe word.
Yeah, exactly. Electric slide it. I mean, could this be the Mecha challenge being manifested now?
Mm-hmm. Well, back to what Danny was saying just about the journey. Like, I do think he has the right mindset going into Survivor, where that I do feel like that's something that they really do drill into players' heads of, like, don't be attached to the results. You're here for the journey. I think that is really the ethos of Survivor in the new era. Whereas at one point that the ethos of Survivor was, win at all costs. What will you do to get the win for you and for your family? Now, I think it's much more of a mindset of, okay, go out there, play this game, but ultimately, like, what's the adventure that you get out of this experience?
Well, I think that's also helped by the fact that, by and large, now the people that are cast are those that love the show first and foremost, over like the ability to want to play and change the game and take home the $1 million, etc. And so I do feel like everyone has a story to tell out there. They really emphasize that in the editing in the new era. And so I do think it's a good attitude. I don't know, maybe it's just the job title, but you invoked his name beforehand. Danny reminds me a lot of Mike. And that Mike himself also came in being
Mhm.
like, yeah, I've had a good life of experiences to figure out who I am. I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen. Let me just sort of roll with whatever comes my way, and end up working out really successful for Mike, right? Where he's like, yeah, I'll look for an idol. Okay, I'll make this blind side happen. He really was able to just go with the tide. Where he lost, it'll be interesting to see if Danny took notice of that, right? The fact that he was not able to own up to those things that he was rolling with the tide on when push came to shove in the end. So I like the looseness with which he's approaching the game. I do not think it's a be all end all to either have a concrete plan for going in or no plan. I think it really depends on the person. I don't think Danny's going to suffer by not going in and saying like, okay, I want to go target this person. I want to join up with this person. He does seem someone that's, as he said about Jeremy, very lovably, affably cunning, like someone that could, really impress you early on. Certainly, I think will be an asset for his tribe in being one of the most physically adept. And I think will be able to at least keep pace. I do question if he will be the type to like get out to a lead though in this proverbial race of like, okay, now I'm gonna be the one to start making the moves. That doesn't really seem like the way he's coming across to me, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Anything else we want to say about Danny?
Let's see. Going back to his bio here. So yeah, he talked about his boxing history, but he did grow up also doing mixed martial arts. He says one of his favorite hobbies is Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So the others may count themselves lucky that we no longer have challenges where people have to put hands on each other.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to be an asset in the challenges.
What's interesting is this will tie nicely into our next contestant. We talk about Breathe with Danny. He is very focused on mindfulness and breath work and meditation. I wonder if he gets to the merge, this could be like a surprising challenge beast, right? Considering how many times are these individual challenges all about mind
That's a good
over
point.
matter? That's just standing there, putting your mind in a good place. We saw this very recently with Haley on Australian Survivor, right? Like the pain management corroborated really nicely with the challenges that are meant to make you painful. I wonder if Danny is going to be able to use that as an ace in a hole, coupled with the idea that like he is physically strong and will probably be able to get to that merge in the first place.
I would say that we saw less in Survivor 43 of like the ready, set, stand still challenges. There were a couple, but I think that it really peaked in 41 and 42. And I wonder if 43 was the beginning of a new trend.
Yeah, I wonder, right? Because we had things like the multi-stage course and the pick your partner stuff from Survivor 43, but then they had things like, people exhausting themselves within the giant nets, and it's like, okay, do they want to replicate that? Or would they say, okay, it's much easier if we just move on to the final stage of hold up the bucket? I am really intrigued from a challenge perspective, specifically as we talked about with Last Gasp, to see, okay, how much will 43 reflect on 44, considering how unconventional 43 was in many ways?
Mike, we talked about Danny. Why don't we talk about somebody who is not Danny, but Frannie?
Yes, someone who's not Danny, indeed. In
Mhm.
Frannie. Frannie is Frannie Marin, 23 years old, youngest woman on the cast. Obviously, Carson is the youngest man. She is a research manager from Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Okay. All right. What else can you tell me about Frannie?
Yeah, so Franny is somebody who, while she has a mind right now for mindfulness, right now she works at a mindfulness and compassion center, and that's what she primarily researches. She does have a good bevy of customer service experience, which she's more so going to bank on here. So very excited to hear from Franny, who I think her age would surprise you. I think she does have a bit of a wisdom about herself, given just how much she has gone through in only 23 years, that you wouldn't believe she was the youngest woman in the game.
Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and hear from Frannie herself.
To start off, tell us about yourself. Give us your name, age, and occupation.
Yeah, my name is Frannie Marin. I'm 23 years old and I work in research, but I work in research at a mindfulness and compassion center. So I look at how things like meditation and self-compassion can help treat mental and physical conditions.
Why are you here on Survivor?
I'm here because Survivor is honestly the trifecta of all the things that excite me. I am in social psychology, so I love the idea of learning how people interact with each other, trying to kind of infiltrate these different group dynamics that we'll have on our tribe. I love the physical component, just like challenging yourself past where you thought your body could go. And then also kind of the like mental, spiritual component of pushing yourself past your limits and seeing what you're made of.
What's your history with watching Survivor?
I first started watching Survivor. The first season I saw was actually Cagayan. I hadn't even heard of the show before that, but I was just flipping through channels one day and I saw Tony running across my TV screen and I was like, what is going on? And I loved that season, obviously, and was just immediately hooked, and went back and watched like almost every single season, have studied this game so much and am just steeped in the culture of Survivor for the past couple of years.
Living. Okay. They don't call him Team TV for nothing.
Absolutely. You see him running across it and you're automatically tuned in. I really hope it's just her tuning into specifically like the one part of the Survivor Cagayan premiere with the infamous, "This is huge, I needed this." And like, that was her gateway moment. She said, okay, screw the keyhole. I'm breaking down the door. I want to see what the show's all about.
Okay. Here's more Frannie.
Give me one Survivor winner and one non-winner who you identify with the most.
I love Sophie Clark. I think she is such an underrated winner. I think that she's such a badass. Like, she didn't take shit from anybody. I think that she's just like such a powerful woman, and I really try to emulate that as much as I can. So I try to identify with her as much as possible. And then a non-winner, I love Gabby Pascuzzi so much. Like, she jokes herself about how she, cried on the island. And I think that I will be just the same way. Like, I think both of us play a lot with our heads, but also play a lot with our hearts and take our emotions really seriously. So I hope to play like her as well out there.
What's your favorite moment in Survivor history?
Honestly, the moments that I remember the most are just the silly things that happen in the show, like Sean on the horses, or Rob Cesternino talking about Britney Spears and asparagus spears.
What a great moment.
Probably a more serious moment that I love is when Christian was fighting against Alec in that like 5.5 hour immunity challenge. That was just like the ultimate David versus Goliath matchup that just like perfectly summed up the season.
Livin, what was that a serious moment? I thought we loved how funny it was, all the topics that Christian went through during 5.5 hours.
Wait, I mean, it came up in, back-to-back interviews about
this might be the new Black Widow Brigade answer.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
Well, we also have to bring up here, so Rob, in your opinion, is your like Britney Spears, asparagus spears quote, like, I feel like that's a deep cut. I feel like that wouldn't even
Very
make your
deep
top,
cut.
your top 3 Survivor the Amazon quotes.
I'm very surprised if you gave me 1,000 guesses of what a memorable moment would have been. I would not have come up with that.
Yeah, that's why I love this question too, is bringing up random things like that. And Sean on the horses, specifically his nuts getting crushed while riding the horse, which again, like, came out of the very more dramatic moment of Sean and Pascal rolling around on the sand together, the unlikely duo winning. No. I want America's Funniest Home Videos happening here. I want to go back to the Sophie Clark comparison, because I think that's really interesting. She didn't even talk about this in which previous player do you identify with the most. In her bio, it says, who in your life is your biggest inspiration and why? She puts Sophie there. She says, I think Sophie Clark is actually the coolest person ever. She was such a badass on the show and in her life, and I try to emulate that whenever I can. Runner-up is the Scarlet Witch. So Frannie Vision is coming right now. Good on Sophie for, I guess, beating out a fictional magical character. But I could see
Remind me of the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, the Wanda Maximoff, the MCU character.
Got it.
So I think that Franny's game is easier to place than Wanda's accent. I think that the Sophie comparison, I see a lot of it here. Someone who is like a pseudo intellectual. Sophie was like a student when she came to play Survivor. After that, she graduated med school. Franny talks in her bio about like one of her proudest accomplishments is that she got a perfect score on her MCAT. And so I actually do see them having very similar types of personality. And Sophie's very good at this game. Not only did she win once, but one of the reasons why Tony went after her in such a massive fashion is because he saw how big of a threat she could be. And so I think
Mhm.
if Franny is able to replicate that skill set, that is very, very good for this game.
Yeah. And if she could bring sort of like the Sophie like game plan and like a cunning strategy to the game, but sort of like put it in sort of a more like quirky container of like, hey, like I'm a fun, like quirky personality. You don't have to worry about me. Like that feels like a good recipe.
Yeah, and considering what she listed as some of her favorite moments on the show, like she is kind of a goofy personality, and so I
Yeah.
do think she'd be able to make that happen at least initially. She could fall into the Claire keyhole here of, all
Hmm.
right, maybe later on people perceive her as someone like, oh, Franny is actually running things behind the scenes. But I do think initially the way that she presents herself, she also is someone who's laughing a lot through these answers, and so yeah, I do suspect her as someone that people might not see coming.
Hmm. I think that that's really the beauty of what Marianne was able to do, where it's like, okay, well, if you are sort of like this outward facing, like, okay, big, funny personality, that people are like, okay, I get why they're on the show, but then also be able to back it up with some strategic planning and like have a very good sense of the game that people aren't necessarily worried about because you've put them so at ease with your personality. I feel like that's a really powerful combination.
Do you think that meta strategy has changed in the new era, though? Because people certainly make comments, right, about the backstories that people have. Do you feel like once people come clean about their histories on the island, that becomes the okay, I could see why you were cast on the show rather than okay, clearly they have more going on upstairs. Otherwise, they wouldn't be on this show.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if that's been like vocalized to me. Is that something that people are doing out there? Of they sort of like identify like a person's like backstory. But it's certainly possible that we're getting there.
Yeah, well, I think that would certainly help. Again, some of these people to become more underestimated, to your point, as to like, well, they weren't brought on clearly for their mental acuity, when no, that was it all along. The backstory just came as extra.
Hmm. Okay, let's hear more from Franny.
What's one life experience you feel has prepared you most for the game?
Yeah, so I worked actually at a nail salon for several years. Really like very busy place, very intense environment. People literally coming in and like screaming at me about their nails. And I was in charge of navigating all our customers, but also all of our technicians and just like keeping everybody happy, keeping things moving when there were a million different parts that I had to take into account all at once. And that kind of customer service, I think, is a really good preparation for something out here like Survivor, because you're constantly trying to understand everyone's motivations and their needs and keep them all happy and satisfied. And that's something I really learned how to do when I was working there.
What excites you the most about the new era of Survivor?
What excites me the most about the new era is honestly just the pace of the game. I think it's so fun that this game has turned into this like swirling tornado of chaos. I know it introduces a lot of uncertainty and randomness, which can really hurt a lot of players' games. But if you can, be that calm in the eye of the storm, then I think you can really make a lot of exciting things happen amidst all the chaos. And that's kind of what I hope to do in this new era.
Live in. Mike, should they really steer into that of the swirling tornado of chaos?
Didn't we with the Survivor 41 logo already, where the person was drowning in the storm?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. I feel like that maybe they felt like the monster was the like more concise representation of that.
Yeah, I mean, we also saw the tornado of chaos when people nearly drowned in one of those challenges in Survivor 42. So maybe she
Mm.
has it on the brain. I mean, this is a great mindset, conveniently enough, from the person who practices and studies mindfulness, right? Of like, yeah, a lot of crazy crap happens in the modern day era of Survivor. But if you are the cool head to stand as the center and maybe also serve as that guiding post for other people as well, trying to figure out how changing the game is, that can not only help you, but help your position in the game as well. And it's almost the opposite yet similar kind of answer that Danny had, right? Of, well, you never know what to expect, so roll with the punches. I think Frannie is vocalizing that from more of a mindfulness perspective of, yes, you have to roll with the punches, but go to your Zen territory as well, because the more you also fluster yourself with all the unknowns out there, the more you're just going to drive yourself crazy.
Okay. Let's hear from Frannie.
What do you think people will perceive you as?
People will probably perceive me as kind of nerdy and smart. Just kind of, I don't know, the way I talk. I'm going to try not to, I'm going to try not to be Michaela, like plotting 4 moves ahead in the sand, because I don't want them to know how far ahead I'm thinking in this game. But I think it'll be hard for me to not come off as the person that people want to put in for puzzles, or the person who people will go to for strategy. But I hope people also perceive me as being really excited and a really fun person to be around in this game.
What type of player are you looking for in an alliance?
Ooh, in an alliance, I want somebody that is predictable to me. They don't have to be like super predictable in general. I don't necessarily need somebody who's really stable, who's always going to tell the truth, but I want somebody that I can really understand, so that I have that person who I can, talk through strategy with, really think through moves carefully, but hopefully I'll also know them well enough that I'll be able to see when they're going to turn on me and be able to plan ahead for that.
Livin, the exciting thing about Frannie to me is that I do feel like that answer could fit in with either one of the previous people that we talked about on this tribe. I think Frannie and Danny could have more common than just, the last syllable of their name. I think they do both, again, study this mindfulness that I think they'll be able to connect on a really big level. But Frannie also talks about in this answer, right? Like someone that is fairly predictable and stable. And I do think that Danny presents this stability to him, either from a physical perspective or just with a, hey, que sera, let's just roll with the punches. I think that's something that she'd be looking for. But Frannie is also a thinker, right? She cites Michaela that she doesn't want to be taking out the seashells and making the moves happen, but like she is certainly someone who thinks things through. And I think while maybe she and Claire would find a point where they would inevitably turn on each other, I do think, especially early on, they really could become kindred spirits of like, okay, here's a girl who thinks about the game the same way I do. I want to work with her rather than against her.
Yeah. Just trying to think of how Sophie handled alliances. She was able to
I mean,
work
she was able to find one night one, right? By just sitting up with the stars with 5 people on the tribe.
Yeah, so she was able to sort of like go with the flow and work with people that she wouldn't necessarily have a lot in common with, like Coach, but then also was able to, really like seek out people like Yule. That was somebody who she felt like was a like-minded person. So predictable to her, I feel like is interesting. I don't think I've ever heard that question answered that way before.
Right, that not just predictable in general, but like, okay, I know your personality well enough that I personally can figure out what you're going to do, rather than like the general whole of the tribe.
Not the keyhole of the tribe.
Not the keyhole of the tribe, no.
Okay.
This is going to be our new falling asleep with chocolate in your mouth. How eager will you be to look for advantages in the game?
I will probably be very eager to look for advantages in the game. Just in general, I really like to look for things. Like I'm always picking up leaves I find or little scraps of things on the street. So I kind of have that curious eye as I move through my world. So I think I'm always going to be looking for idols walking around the beach or things in challenges. If I'm sitting on a bench, you better believe I'm going to tear that bench apart looking for an advantage. That's a big priority for me out here, is always being curious and keeping my eye out.
Living. Mike, yeah, I noticed in her bio, one of her favorite hobbies is collecting leaves. Should you be touching all the leaves?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know
You're a
she's
dad,
I know
right?
she's researching mindfulness, but maybe she should study a bit in epidemiology because I just feel like there's so much nastiness that exists out there in our world. I'm less perturbed by the leaves and more so the quote little scraps of things on the street. Like she's living in Cambridge. Like, yes, Harvard is cleaned up to a certain extent, but it still is an urban center. There's a lot of crap out there in the street.
Yeah. Is that good hunting for idols, like practice of like picking up like trash on the street?
I would say maybe back in the days of millennials versus Gen X when they just like painted a logo on a coconut, right? These ones you actually have to forcibly stick your hand inside tree roots. I don't know if Franny's doing that. That's the equivalent of like sticking your arm inside the gutter rather than just picking things up off the sidewalk.
Okay. All right. Maybe, Franny is going to open our eyes. We'll all be picking up leaves after this.
She's not the only. I mean, remember Jam Jam last time was saying like, yeah, in my daily life, I just like to walk around and look at things. I notice everything a little bit differently. So I don't know if it's these people manifesting like, well, I just see things a little bit odder than everybody else. So I'm always on the
Mhm.
lookout for things. That's just how I live. Or if Franny is indeed like a hoarder of the world's treasure or trash, depending on, whose purview it is.
Okay. All right. Let me hear more from Franny.
What's the one thing you told yourself you wouldn't do in this game?
The one thing that I am telling myself not to do in this game is to shrink myself. I don't want to make myself smaller in any way, not like literally, but figuratively in terms of I don't want to dampen my personality, dampen myself. I don't want to make smaller moves because I don't want to upset the apple cart. Like I really want to be like the biggest, fullest version of myself out here. And I don't want, I don't want to hide out here. I want to be out and loud and proud.
Levin, what's the best You hear that, Wayne Zielinski? Get that shrink ray away from Franny.
Yeah. Well, I love that for her. That there's a lot of players that are like, okay, well, I'm just gonna hide. I'm gonna try to make the target as small as possible. And that's not the game that Franny wants to play. And I feel like that ultimately I could relate to my own experience of in Survivor All Stars. I'm like, all right, just gotta keep a low profile, just try to stay out of the way. And ultimately, they still voted me out. And I say, well, I feel like I didn't get to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, it also vibes nice with Carolyn, right, whose entire MO is, I'm going to scream at everything I see because I just want to take everything in and not hide a part of myself. I mean, listen, I would say this is the biggest red flag to me of her entire interview, is not even necessarily her shrinking parts of herself, but her specifically saying, like, I don't want to make smaller moves because I don't want to upset the apple cart. And, I think that's a little different than not making a big move because it doesn't benefit you in that moment. But I do fear a bit that, again, perhaps she picked it up from the leaves she's gathering on the street. She could contract a case of big move-itis. And
Ooh.
as a result, want to feel like, okay, listen, I'm here only to play one time. Let me make these moves that I think are best for me. And as a result, it does draw that unwanted attention.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's hear a little bit more from Franny.
What's the best advice you received before coming out to play?
Well, okay, the best advice I received was from my mom. So we both love Michaela from Millennials, Gen X, and Game Changers. And she and I always remember that moment where she, is with her tribe mates and she's thinking 4 moves ahead and drawing things out in the sand. And they're all just kind of looking at her like, oh my God, this girl is thinking ahead. And so my mom, remembering that moment and loving that moment, told me that I think the same way as Michaela. She knows that I will also be thinking 4 moves ahead. So she told me to kind of keep that under wraps, talk through things with people 1 or 2 moves ahead, but never let anybody know just how prepared you are for the rest of the game.
Levin. Friday's all about the deep cuts between, your Family Feud, probably number 4 answer for most famous Amazon quote. And I feel like when we talk about, okay, people showcasing themselves as being too smart, I don't think we jump back, more than 10 seasons to Michaela. But I think it's a very valid point that threads the needle of Frannie being like, it's not like I'm not going to make these moves and I'm not going to think things through strategically, but I don't want to go so far as what Michaela did of essentially making not the game plan for the next play, but for like the fourth quarter in Q1, right?
Mhm.
Because that's when people start really catching on to you. So again, I think it's a nice happy medium that she's striking of, okay, listen, I know people are going to think I'm brainy. I know people are going to think I'm a nerd. I'm not going to play against that. But at the same time, let me not come across as like the uber super duper nerd, I guess, to bar, or the mega nerd, depending on what you want to put,
Yeah.
of, okay, this person already has their final three plotted out. I want to make sure that they're far from it.
And in the tornado of chaos, you can't really plan 4 moves ahead.
That's also true as well, that essentially every time you put out the seashells, a wave is going to come and just wash them all away as much as she
Mhm.
tries to collect them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Last couple of questions with Frannie.
Can you come up with your own weird phrase that could be said at a challenge to unlock an idol?
A weird phrase that I would love to say at a challenge is this makes me gobble like a turkey.
What celebrity or fictional character would you want to come out for a loved one's visit?
Oh, I I kind of have a crush on Michael Pollan, the author. I just think he's so cool. Like his books are so well written and he's chosen to write about such interesting topics throughout his career. So I would probably invite him just to chat with him about, I don't know, like food and the body and psychedelics, everything that he knows so much about.
Michael Kevin Pollan is an American author and journalist.
That Michael Kevin Pollan. Yeah, he's written such books as to how to change your mind, what the new science of psychedelics teaches us.
Maybe that's why she's picking up all the leaves.
Yeah, she's hoping for perhaps some shrooms to be part of those leaves as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, The Last of Us has really changed my perception on all of this. So be careful out there,
bad
Frannie.
fungus out there. But I'm feeling a lot of good fungus about Frannie here. I really do think Frannie has a lot of great stuff, appropriately enough, in the mindfulness of how to approach this game, right? Of like, I'm going to make sure I'm the fullest version of myself, but also realize some of my faults and make sure not to steer too much into that. I know that the game is full of a lot of instability, but I love stability. One thing from her video that she talked about is how she loves when 15 things are going on at once. She loves multitasking. She says she has a lot of gumption. She says, zesty is my word, according to Frannie.
Yeah. Okay. Zesty. That
Yeah,
was one of Nora's words, I think.
Yes. Oh, I do remember that she described herself as when she was going through the entire list of adjectives to herself. So maybe, again, that's someone else that Carolyn will connect with, considering how much she loves Nora.
Okay. All right. So, Mike, any other thoughts here on Frannie before we move on?
Yeah. So I think Frannie is, like I talked about with Carson, I do think she's going to be our consummate puzzle person on Soka because, like she talked about, like, she kind of just gives off that image. And maybe perhaps unlike Claire, who is similarly brainy, I think people will turn to her. That may put her in trouble early on. We have seen with people like Zach and NECA, if there are people on the outs in these first few days and they don't do well on a puzzle, that could be the nail in their coffin. If Frannie is somehow able to get into that territory and she biffs the puzzle, maybe she does end up being a surprisingly early boot. Honestly, that's the only way I could see her going until the post-merge of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like she's got a really good skill set. She seems like she knows her stuff strategically. I feel like that she is going to be an asset in the challenges. And so, yeah, I feel like that she is set up remarkably well.
Yeah, honestly, she reminds me a lot of Kellen for whatever reason. I don't know if it's like similarly, Kellen now has a different career, but sort of having a similar mindfulness about the game, about being this like really affable personality that people can get along with. But Kellen, I know, was even Josh Wigler's winner pick back when he was on set in Survivor Ghost Island. I really see Frannie ingratiating herself well. Hell, we just talked about the two previous people, how both of them could work with her in different ways. And I think perhaps more so than someone like Claire, she does have a chance of, much like Sophie, being able to like surround herself with a core and being one of the least suspecting members of that core until it's too late, until she makes her way to the end there. Now, will that convert into a win from a jury? That's always up in the air depending on the people that are there and whether or not you can convince people like, yeah, you thought I was just this like goofy person who meditates all day, but actually I got a perfect score on my MCATs. I'm not sure if she'll be able to spin that narrative. But when it comes to actually getting there, I will admit, out of the 18 castaways, she is someone that I feel really good about getting there in the first place.
Yeah, I would say after hearing everything, except picking up the leaves,
Yeah.
somebody that I think would be, a really solid pick.
Well, Frannie did what Sari couldn't do in her first season. And maybe
She's afraid
that'll
of the
also
leaves.
continue
Look.
into winning.
Sari, one of the greatest, smartest players ever, says, be afraid of the leaves. Frannie says, I'm touching them all.
Yeah, so
I got to go with
Sari-
Sari.
Yeah, I guess maybe. I'm not sure though. How many leaves have we seen her pick up in her subsequent 3 seasons of Survivor?
She doesn't do it.
So you think she's completely leaf averse her entire time, over 100 days
She's
playing
still
Survivor?
afraid of them, but she's like, okay, there's nothing there.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose so. Unless this season, we had the beads. Can we now have the leaf immunity idols?
Yeah. I do think that if she starts going to like a challenge and talking about all the leaves that she's touching, I think people are going to be like, oh, she has something. That's a secret
Yeah, exactly.
phrase.
She doesn't even have to say, oh, that makes me gobble like a turkey.
Okay. Mike, let's talk about, finally, after all this time, we have Heidi back on Survivor.
Yeah, let's go to one of your famous quotes, right? Though we'll see. We'll see if there is a Jenna to be found on this tribe. This is a very different type of Heidi, though. Heidi Lagares-Greenblatt. She is 43 years old. She is an engineering manager, currently resides in Pittsburgh, but she is originally from Puerto Rico, from which she immigrated 20 years ago.
Okay. All right. Anything else to highlight from Heidi?
No, I'll have Heidi highlight herself as to the journey she has taken and how she hopes that will translate to a very different type of beach than where she grew up.
Okay, here is Heidi.
Why are you here on Survivor?
I am here in Survivor because I'm following my dreams. So I am a latecomer to Survivor, and from the moment I watched the one episode, I was hooked. So then I ended up watching every season from the beginning. And I've been wanting to be on this show since I saw it for the first time. I want to represent my people, my family. I want to represent Latinas out there, Latinas working in STEM, perhaps, and all those people who may have an accent, may sound different and look different.
What's your history with watching Survivor?
Great question. So some of my neighbors started doing a poll to just selecting the winner from the beginning. And in all honesty, I had never watched an episode. And when I watched the first one, I got into it just because of that. So when I watched the first episode, I was like, how did I never know about this? I moved to the US in 2003. So for me, I just didn't watch from the beginning. I watched like halfway through, and then I ended up going back to season 1 to see what it was all about.
Livin'. Always fun Survivor origin story, right? We talked about this a bit with Heidi as well, where like they get pimped into a fantasy league, or in this case, their neighbors being like, hey, look at these pictures and pick who's going to win this reality show you knew nothing about. And it's Heidi's keyhole into getting access to the entire world of Survivor and eventually becoming a contestant.
I mean, is that what everybody should be doing right now? Like, go to your neighbor and ask to show them the pictures of the Survivor 44 cast and see if they can pick the right one?
Yeah, Issa Look is a real gateway to that, right? Like, find your Bryce in the world for various reasons. I mean, I certainly have seen that with like office pools, like people that will do Survivor fantasy leagues in their office and try to recruit people, right? Of like, oh, we need a certain amount of people, and this person's like, I've never watched the show. It's like, oh, that's fine. Just like, look at these people. You don't even need to read their bios or listen to their interviews or anything. Just like pick a person that looks good to you from what you know about Survivor, which from the super casual perspective, right, is like they vote each other off and they eat rats.
Okay. Let's go back to Heidi.
Give me one Survivor winner and one non-winner who you identify with the most.
So I think I would say a winner will be Sandra from Puerto Rico. She's from Puerto Rico. And she was representing, she's almost like the pioneer Latina who actually won. And I look up to her. Something different from me and her, hopefully, will be that I don't sit in too many challenges.
But
Oh.
definitely she's one of
That's
my favorites. A non-winner, there's a few of them. One that I truly like will be a villainess. A lot of people saw her as a villainess, but I truly like her. Angelina. I mean, her negotiations change the way that this game is played. We've seen the negotiations for Rice later on in other seasons. So I truly enjoy her. She's all about female empowerment, and I love that, and I identify with that a lot. And I think I'm a little biased with the Latinas there.
What's your favorite moment in Survivor history?
There's a few favorites. I think this is not my favorite because of what happened, but this is my favorite because I have rewatched it with my family multiple times just to have conversations.
Okay.
The moment when Zeke was outed was so powerful. It was so sad, but at the same time, so powerful for me to have conversations with my kids. And I truly see that as perhaps a line that I do not want to cross, because he got to a personal side where it's a game. At the end of the day, we're going to play hard, but it is a game. And I really do not want to bring any personal items like that, where it should not be my position to do something like that. So I take it as a teaching moment more than anything.
Living. Yeah, I really do hope the bare minimum for Survivor players is they do not out another person on public television without their knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do feel like that is like what Survivor has always hoped would come from something like that, is that it is like a teachable moment. And I think that if you talk to like the producers of Survivor, I feel like that a lot of the bad behavior that has been on the show, I think that they would like to show it and have those lessons be taught from those moments.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. Especially nowadays that the show is marketing itself as such a big family show. And I think that's another reason why we are getting larger forms of representation as well. Going all the way back to Heidi's first answer, I absolutely love that, right? She says, I want to represent my people, my family. I want to represent Latinas out there, Latinas working in STEM, and all those people who may have an accent, may sound different, and look different. It's awesome. I do feel like in the new era, they have made more of an effort to bring in those that are telling the story of immigrants or of residents that are outside of our country, when really that was not a box that was checked in a lot of the previous seasons of Survivor. It's something that Big Brother Canada has been doing since the beginning, and I think has always, and Amazing Race Canada, and I think has always been a really great representation of that society, right? Of the fact that some people do come here from other countries, and sometimes they build themselves up from nothing, but they kind of walk through their present with the past on their backs, of navigating a lot of the new with the old incorporated in. And so I do like the idea of people like Heidi and Jam Jam out here, people like Nasir in the past, right? People like Gio, like coming in and saying, okay,
NECA.
this is
Yeah.
this is the background that I have. Like this is what I want to incorporate into my gameplay and who I am, but also I want to show other people out there who may not have had experienced this in the past 20 plus years on their screen, that like you can come out here and have success even if you do sound different than others.
Okay. Here's more from Heidi.
I think.
What's one life experience you feel has prepared you most for the game?
The life experience that had prepared me the most has definitely been moving to the US. I moved after college. I could barely speak the language. I pretty much had nothing. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a bed. I didn't have anything, pretty much nothing other than an offer for a job. So that's why I moved. And I struggled. I moved to the middle of New York, and I didn't have a car. I didn't have anything. So at the beginning, I just had to struggle a bit and hustle quite a bit in order to get myself going. And that struggle and adaptation that I had to do to move to the US from Puerto Rico was quite, I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that moment, and it's made me who I am. And I think a lot of what I've learned from that moment can be used into this game.
What excites you the most about the new era of Survivor?
I love the speed. I think when I watch the old episodes versus the new episodes, the new ones, it's like there's no time to breathe. And in all honesty, that's my life. I mean, I'm a full-time employee.
I have 2 kids. I do all kinds of things on the side, so I'm always on the run. And I love the pace. I really, really do. A lot of the wrinkles and the unexpected, expect the unexpected. It's really what it's all about, and I absolutely love. I also love the evolution of the game, how diverse it is, how they share the stories of the people, and that's why I'm here, because it inspires me to be here, right? The people in the past inspire me, and I hope to inspire some people in the future as well.
Levin, what?
Expect the unexpected, Mike.
Yeah, maybe wrong show that she is referring to. I do think it's interesting how people sometimes feel like what excites me the most about the New Era Survivor is not even the fact that things are so sped up, it could be a little chaotic, but that specifically that's how I live. And so that's how I kind of will thrive. It's something I certainly sympathize with. I know you do as well, Rob, of like, we are doing so much at any point in time that sometimes when I have free time, I don't know what to do with myself. And so I do actually feel like sometimes I can only really do my best when I'm in this mindset of like, gotta keep moving, gotta keep swimming. And I think Heidi sort of finds herself in a similar spot where maybe in an older era of Survivor, where it's more about taking it day by day, sitting by the fire, slow playing a lot of stuff. That's not how she lives her life. She does not slow play her life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that I wonder if Survivor is drawing people to the game who just like crave that element more and more.
Yeah, not really like adrenaline junkies, I would say, but more so just people who have that fast-paced living style, in a manner of speaking. I wonder if that is truly something that draws. I mean, again, when we ask this question about like what excites you about the new era, I would say about 78% of the time people are saying, "Oh, I love the pace of it." And so, yeah, I wonder if it is the tail wagging the dog, or if it's completely coincidental that a lot of people that are brought on here are people that kind of live these more manic lifestyles where they're constantly doing things, considering that's what the new era of Survivor is actively encouraging.
Okay, let's go back to Heidi.
What do you think people will perceive you as?
I think they may perceive me a little bit on the seasoned side. I get the sense that
Later
I may be on
days?
the older side compared to everyone else. So season is not a bad thing because it comes with a whole lot of experiences. But I'm bubbly. I love people. I love talking to people. I love listening to people. So I hope they perceive me as someone energetic who's willing to play hard, do a strategy hard, but at the same time, you know, being authentic with their friendships and just work hard in camp and at the challenges. So I hope they see me that I'm working hard. And hopefully they, but at the beginning, I cannot be too hard because they'll kick me out. So I just gotta play my timing right. But hopefully they find me authentic.
What type of player are you looking for in an alliance?
I'm looking for actually a partner that may be quite different than me. So I'm on the short side. I want to pair up with someone that's like on the tall side. I am on the older side, maybe. I don't know everyone's ages, but I'm going to be on the older side. So I want to pair up with someone on the younger side. So that's my plan coming in, to kind of pair up and find someone that complements me and I can complement them, and hopefully, you know, have a good friendship behind it too.
Okay, Livin. All right, Mike, do we have that person who is the opposite of Heidi here yet?
Yeah, let's play Guess Who, Soka version. Yeah, so once again, Frannie is a good answer here. Both tall and young, which I think are the two checkboxes she wants. There is someone coming up that I feel could also fill that territory for her, and I think also might work in a field that is closer to what she's doing. But yeah, this might be yet another person that Frannie could get along with if indeed Heidi is seeking the odd couple aspect of it all.
Okay. Heidi seek. Okay. All right.
How eager will you be to look for advantages in the game?
I want to keep my composure, but I am eager. I think we will all have our eyes open and ears open and all our senses quite open to find them. And I truly hope to find one, at least one. The secret behind it is going to be to actually not share the secret with everyone. I feel like in the last few seasons, everyone shared every time they found an advantage or an idol or anything like that, and it bit them. So I if I find one, my strategy coming in is hopefully not sharing the secrets.
What's the one thing you told yourself you wouldn't do in this game?
I will use the example I used in a previous question, which is hopefully not cross that personal ethical line. I'm gonna play hard. If this is a game of deceit, and I will play the game, but there's always that ethical personal line where I do not want to cross. I use the seek example, and that's one line that I really truly hope that I will not cross.
What's the best advice you received before coming out to play?
All right, the best advice I received a few from my close people, my kids, my husband, my husband, not that I have multiple, just one. That was one, if you find an idol, that was from my kids, please do not share it with anybody unless they are with you and they notice it, but to keep that a secret. From my husband, it was more along the lines of, your physical ability will take you so far. What's going to take you beyond your abilities will be your mind. So use your heart and your mind to, stay strong, and just make sure that will take you farther than any physical ability you have.
Can you come up with your...
Yeah, so one thing I want to fixate on here with Heidi is something she mentioned twice in that batch of answers, which is if she finds something, she is adamant, more than I think anybody in this cast, to not let a word slip to anyone.
Promised.
She promised her kids. Rob, would this work for or against someone more in this modern day era of Survivor?
Well, we saw in the last couple of seasons just how much it really did hurt people. But that being said, if she finds the beware advantage and then she has to do a thing where it's ultimately going to get caught back to her, is she going to be conflicted?
Yeah, I feel like we talked about this a bit last time with, again, that sweet spot as to when to find a public idol versus get rid of it. Like, we know last time how if the beads are continuing, this is something that's very tough to do on your own. Carla was able to be a magician and have this work and not have anybody catch on. But on the other two tribes, understandably so, the person had to bring in other people in on the operation. And we've also talked about this idea that, again, a public idol can keep you safe for a fair amount of time before then people start to say, okay, we have to get rid of you for it. So listen, the Sith think in absolutes here. I don't know if coming in with the absolute of like, if I find something, I will never tell anyone about it is a great way to approach things. I think especially early on, let people know about it, especially in the early days of the game, right? When everyone's vote matters so much. If they know you could possibly be safe from an idol, that helps protect you, especially as the numbers winnow down without you having to use a shot in the dark or anything. And as we saw with Vati, could get incorporated into, okay, if you don't have your vote, that could end up really screwing up plans and make people mad at you.
Okay. All right. Let's hear the last bit from Heidi.
Can you come up with your own weird phrase that could be said at a challenge to unlock an idol?
Oh my God, that's a great question. And in all honesty, let me think about it. But I always say how I'm gonna use Heidi isms because my first language is not English. So sometimes I try to translate phrases from a different language to English, and they just come out like, "What did you just say?" So I feel like I may say something along the lines that may be true in my native language, and then kind of translate them. But what would that be? I don't have one right off the bat, but it will be certainly something that will not make sense.
What celebrity or fictional character would you want to come out for a loved one's visit?
You know what? I would love Lin-Manuel Miranda. He identifies as Puerto Rican, although his parents are truly the ones that were born in the island. But that would be amazing dream come true. I absolutely love him, love everything he does, love everything he stands for. And that will be, gosh, a true dream come true.
That would be a real hit.
I mean, absolutely. Not throwing away your shot there with your pick.
Shot in the dark.
I'm really excited for Chappelle to steal Heidi away from Shannon in the draft upcoming. Because as soon as
Mhm.
Shannon hear that answer, I know she wants to pick Heidi, and I know Chappelle's gonna be the one to steal it away from her. So
Mhm.
I'm going to my own St. Jude's right now. I'm manifesting that outcome to happen. Yeah, that's Heidi. I'm excited for the Heidiisms. Apparently, Heidi's on Survivor and saying fun quotes. Name a better pair.
They certainly hopefully this Heidi is not going to be caught in between a rock and a hard stone at any point.
Exactly. Yeah, and neither will she, she has several qualities and one of them is impaired. Hopefully we'll find out exactly what one of those is.
Okay, Mike, anything else about Heidi?
Yeah, so, Heidi is a wife and a mother of two. Her engineering background is something that she really talks up. What is something we never know from looking at you, that she has over 40 patents that she's filed. That's something that she's really proud of. She also has some athleticism to her. One of her favorite hobbies is CrossFit. She played for the national youth basketball team and she was the captain at 12 years old. I believe she currently runs marathons or like is very physical in her daily life as well. So I don't think she'll be a slouch, even though she is the oldest woman in the season. This is a fairly young skewing cast. So like, it's not like she's ancient. She's 43 years old. And I think she won't be a slouch. I'm still though not. I don't know. I feel like if Soka's going to tribal council, one of these people has to be the first out of this tribe. And there could be a world where it may be Heidi for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's definitely in the realm of possibility. I think we have to see the rest of the group and how they ultimately are meshing together. It's hard also because you feel like that everybody is like very quick to like not want to like let go. Like I feel like that the women are going to want to like try to keep the because as we saw in season 43, once a woman goes out, then it's sort of like can end up spiraling where now all of a sudden a lot of women are out of the game. So I think it's something that people are going to want to be mindful of in terms of like making their decisions. So it's complicated. It's one of the things I really don't like about the small tribes.
Yeah, that's the thing is, and it also depends on tribe makeup. We talked about someone like Carolyn, who personality stands out a bit more, and in another world, maybe she'd be the first boot in a tribe. But we're saying, okay, there are these other personalities though that would actively want to work with her. Heidi, I could see a world where maybe there are people that would want to work with her. Again, she does seem naturally warm. She is a mother, and so could have that, motherly quality to a lot of people. But at the same time, she is like the only parent on this tribe. She is the oldest person on the tribe. This group of personalities, maybe more so than Tika, seems to me like less likely to work with somebody like Heidi. Now, that being said, while we are speaking about Tika, if Heidi makes it to the merge, look out. She is gonna make eyes with Jam Jam. They're going to say, we are going to make sure that a Puerto Rican wins this game. And they're going to be locked in, absolute lockstep for the entire rest of the game.
Okay. We'll keep an eye out for that.
Yeah. So I like a lot of things about Heidi. Again, like, I don't think there's anything majorly that's sticking out to me in the interview or the bio to say, like, oh, this is going to get her in trouble. I just feel like, unfortunately, there are mitigating circumstances that may play against her if, especially early on, Soka does end up going to a tribal council, or maybe even later on where people like Claire, who may be initially targeted if Soka were to go to tribal council early, by the later days of talking about a later days person, perhaps of the pre-merge, she would have enough connections to protect herself. Whereas hopefully Heidi does find her oppositional partner in crime. If she doesn't, there's a chance that she might be sort of like the odd person out, kind of like what we ended up seeing a bit with Nasir in Survivor 41, right? Where like, yes, he was able to find the idol, and there were still a lot of other personality kerfuffles happening in the game, but Nasir did seem a bit on the outs of like the Danny, Deshawn, Erica, Heather stuff that was happening in the center of it.
Mike, I'm very excited to talk about this next person here because this seems like a masterful troll job on the part of Survivor to that you and I have a friend who does not like to hear too much about Survivor these days. But I have a feeling he might hear a little bit about a man named Josh Wilder.
Yes, Josh, we know it's you, okay? Just tell us you played Survivor.
It was one thing when we first I saw Carolyn Weiger.
Like, come on, it's an exact 1-for-1. These guys could basically be twins.
Yeah.
Josh, like, don't, we're not idiots, okay? Just let us know, Josh, that you went out to play Survivor, finally.
Okay. Here is Josh Weidler.
Josh Wilder. Wilder, yes. We talked about a previous Heidi, and where the girls have gone wild there, the boys are getting wilder in the form of Josh Wilder, a 34-year-old surgical podiatrist from Atlanta.
Okay. All right. What do we need to know about Josh here?
So Josh is one of those people that is a survivor in more ways than one. His life has actually been plagued with a fair amount of medical maladies that has had him live in a manner of speaking, through it all. And so he's hoping to put like an official title to the surviving that he's been doing essentially his entire life with the game.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and hear from Josh.
Why are you here on Survivor?
So I'm here on Survivor because basically to fulfill my adventurous side. When I was born with a congenital deformity called prune belly syndrome, where basically my kidneys weren't fully functioned. So I wasn't supposed to live past 5 years old. Thank God I got a kidney transplant when I was 9 years old by a cadaveric donor, Kristen Regal. She died at the age of 15 by a drunk driver. Like her life hasn't even started. So because of that, ever since then, I've always wanted to live my life through her because I'm living for two people. And when knowing about her, she was always adventurous. She liked to be outdoors. She was just a really bubbly person. So I'm doing this for her and for my family, and just because, I love Survivor, and it's, the best game show ever.
Live it.
Yeah. Wow, that's an amazing story.
Yeah, it's incredible. And on top of that, he goes into something that happened even later in his life, more recently in his bio. So he talks about obviously having prune belly syndrome, but then he talks about when he was 25 years old, I believe, because he was on a lifelong immunosuppressant medication, it caused him to develop stomach cancer. And so now he is a cancer survivor as well, on top of surviving this prune belly syndrome and getting this kidney transplant when he was only 9 years old.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Boy. And now he wants to be on Survivor.
And now he wants to be on Survivor. The donor angle is so intriguing to me. I understand what he's saying, obviously, right? Like, it must be so emotionally complex to be like, yeah, you have the organ of this person who died, and you feel like, well, you have a part of them inside of you. Like, you find so much out about, especially this girl who got killed when she was 15, had her whole life ahead of her and wasn't able to live it, that like, okay, I want to go out and do everything that I can. The way he vocalizes it kind of makes it seem like she was a Survivor fan. And so it's like, okay, I guess I have to play this now. It's what Kristen would have done. So I have to follow in her footsteps, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is just, a really remarkable story.
Oh, very much so. And the fact that it sort of reminds me of Ryan a bit, in that, like, Josh is a very athletic person. He talks about, doing all these obstacle courses, and probably is one of the most fit people in this cast. And I wonder if part of it was part of this idea of, because he had grown up being told, he had only so long to live and he couldn't do these things, that like once he was able to actually get the physical stuff behind him and be able to get his legs out from under him, he's like, screw you. I'm going to become like the best version of myself that I can be. It's very inspirational in that way.
Okay, let me hear more from Josh.
What's your history with watching Survivor?
So I started watching the Survivor show when it came out in May 2000 with my family. It was just a new show that no one's ever done before. And my family was very athletic and liked to be outdoors and doing stuff like that. So we always watched it every Thursday night and I've seen almost every season except a couple because of med school and college and everything. So we're very, very hardcore fans.
Give me one Survivor winner and one non-winner who you identify with the most.
One Survivor winner that I identify the most would have to be Jeremy Bennett, and then non-winner Avi.
Livin. Mike, I seen the bio also about AV. Who's AV?
I'm pretty sure we shouldn't be asking who's AV. We should be asking where is Davey?
Davey. AV is Davey.
Yeah, I thought for a second, like, wow, is Josh really into Survivor New Zealand that he's talking about season 1 winner Avi? But no, I believe he'll supplement it with like some context clues.
Because I'm looking in the written bio also, and I see about that I read it as Avi. I was like, who's Avi?
I think it's a bit of,
Obscenity?
unfortunately, a little bit of nominal aphasia where he remembers his
Got
name as AV instead of Davey.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
For sure, just because he was a great overall social player, and he did very well at challenges, but he got off 6th place.
There you go.
And I want to be the winner.
What's your favorite moment in Survivor history?
Probably when Sari and the Dynamic 6, I don't think they're called 6, but it was the 6 women who voted out one of the guys because he gave up his idol. Sorry, I'm blanking on the names, but he gave up his idol, and they kicked him out. And there were 6 women, and they dominated that whole season. I forget what it was. I'm sorry. But that moment in time stands out the most to me.
Sovereign 6, right?
Yeah. So let's not put him on Twish Ultimate Showdown anytime soon. That's okay though. Again, we all have different levels of fandom. Josh has been watching the show since the beginning. He just may not remember the name of the alliance,
all the women,
or the number of people that were in there, but he knows the basic details.
Okay, that's fine.
Also, I think we passed about the fact that he may have gotten Jeremy's name wrong as well. I called him Jeremy Bennett.
Look,
there's a lot of over 600
Survivor,
people.
There's a lot of Survivor, okay?
Yeah, exactly. This man has had to deal with so much illness throughout.
He had a lot going on.
He almost died twice.
Come on.
And then he had to go through medical school. He's helping people every day. It's okay that he got Jeremy's last name wrong and didn't remember how many people were in the Black Widow Brigade.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone can quote Rob Cesternino off the back of their head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go back to Josh.
What's one life experience you feel has prepared you most for the game?
Probably being a surgeon, because you always have to be prepared for something to go wrong. In the operating room, you're prepared for, a linear progression, A to B, that you're prepared for, but that always doesn't go the way you want it to be. It's never A to B. It's always kind of B to D or C to F. So always being prepared for the next step and having a backup plan and a backup plan to that backup plan has prepared me as well. Also, being athletic, doing obstacle course races once or twice a year has prepared me for the challenges, because I like that competitive nature and that side of things.
What excites you the most about the new era of Survivor?
So the new twists, the new turns, the new challenges. What scares me probably is the Beware challenge, because there's all those twists kind of make it hard for you to kind of play a game with your alliance member. So honesty and integrity kind of go out the window with this game. At first, when it first came out, I told myself, I'm going to play an honest game. I'm going to have my alliance numbers. I'm not going to backstab. But with this new era, there's no way you can do that, because there's always new twists and turns. So that's exciting. And it's more of a mental, emotional game now, more so. So everything's new, and I'm very excited to do it.
What do you think people will perceive you as?
I think they'll perceive me as athletic, and one that provides for my tribe mates at first. And then I want to be more social and inclusive with my tribe mates so I can get to the end. And at that point, it's gloves off, I'm going to backstab, cheat, steal, do what I need to do to get there. But at first, I'm going to play a very social game, be athletic, be the provider. And then once we merge, I make it to merge, God willing, then I'm going to do what I need to do. Everything's out. All bets are out the window.
Living.
What?
Let's talk about Josh's physicality a bit more, because Josh says in his CBS video, he is not going to say that he is a surgical podiatrist.
What's he going to say?
We don't know. My assumption, I talked about this with Marianne, would probably be some sort of like personal trainer. Just again, like, look at what they put him in, you know, look at his muscles. I think he could very easily get away with that lie.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand the impulse to not reveal that you're a surgical podiatrist, but is that going to really change people's perceptions?
Yeah, Deshaun was a podiatry student, right? He was like a graduation and a residency away from being what Josh is right now, and I don't think that impacted anything one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like was it Voce didn't? It was a brain surgeon and didn't want to say that, but I mean, I guess maybe like the thing is like, if you told people you were a surgical podiatrist, that they would say, "Oh, he's lying. He's actually a brain surgeon, and he's just saying that."
Nobody works on feet.
Mm-hmm.
How dare you? Yeah, what I do think is interesting about this athleticism is the fact that Josh specifically outlines that he's done a lot of obstacle courses. Honestly, I think, listen, physical activity prior to Survivor is always a good idea, but I actually do feel like obstacle courses...
Like a drink before war.
Exactly. Throw the glass behind you into the sand. I do feel like...
Then you visit the surgical podiatrist when somebody steps on it.
Frannie, don't pick that up off the ground. But I do think that obstacle courses probably is a more applicable physical skill set, because we've seen, like, in bios, people talk about running marathons and endurance and all that stuff. We don't really have those challenges on Survivor. The only one I can think of is the memory one, where you have to run back and forth across the sand a bunch of times to different stations, but they don't do that anymore. Almost always, especially in the team challenges, right? It's going to be navigating some sort of obstacle course. And so I do think Josh actually has probably one of the most adept physical skill sets for what the challenges directly provide. And I think as a result stands the most likely chance of being like the physical asset for the entire season.
Okay. All right. Back to Josh.
What type of player are you looking for in an alliance?
The type of player I'm looking for in an alliance are someone who will have my back, kind of honesty and trustworthiness to an extent. You can't really trust anybody in this game, right? But, you know, every Ricard needs a Shan and vice versa. So I want that one person to be my ride or die, my wing man, my wing woman up until the merge, and then can split off. But to get to that point, you kind of have to feel everybody out. And to do that, I want to try to avoid tribal council as much as possible by winning challenges, being the supporter, being the provider, just keeping our team nice and tight. So definitely need that one person with honesty and trustworthiness.
How eager will you be to look for advantages in the game?
Very eager. That's one of my top things on my list to do, because I'm already perceived as a threat with my athletic ability. So I want to keep winning challenges, be social, so I can find my one wing person, and then find these hidden advantages and hidden immunity idols so I can get further in the game, so I won't be perceived as a bigger threat than I'm already perceived as.
Levin. So it's so interesting, Rob, that Tika last week, 2/3 of them were like, I'm not doing that early on. Oh, that's the kiss of death. That paints a huge target on my back. Basically, everyone so far on Soka's like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Why not? This is what you come to this game to do. And maybe a couple of them are like, I won't do it early on. But by and large, these people are just going to be tearing that jungle apart throughout their time on this tribe.
It's going to be a race to see who gets it.
Yeah, I do like Josh's perspective, though, based on his own perception of like, I know I'm going to be a target anyway. I think, again, that counters so nicely from other people saying like, well, I need to find it behind the scenes because I don't want to be targeted as someone who has this thing just based on who I am. Josh is relying on advantages because of his perception of, okay, I know later on I'm going to get targeted as a threat. So like, I might as well do it. If I'm going to be targeted anyway, why not just target myself and looking for idols so I can at least prevent the inevitable from happening?
I don't necessarily agree with that philosophy.
How so?
I feel like that if he has concerns about being a target, I feel like that those concerns are addressed better in other ways than saying like, hey, I'm going to go out and get the advantages also on top of that.
I mean, that is fair. Bruce does make this point, right, in the last podcast we did of like, hey, if you'd rather have it, would you rather have an ally or an idol? Go with the ally every day of the week. Like, put in the work by making the social connections to save yourself instead of the idol. But I appreciate Josh's perspective here, too. Of he has the perspective to at least say, there's a chance I could be targeted. And so then let me just go for broke and I'd rather be the target who has an idol in his pocket than just be the target without anything.
I'm just trying to think also that are we seeing players who are like that if this is a small tribes and like as we know it is, like I kind of feel like that you are one of the most physical people. You're probably one of the safest people on this tribe. So I just feel like that he kind of has a misread of the game also.
Well, that's a good point as to how much will this situation change, to be candid, once they hit the beach and he sees Danny. Is he going to say, okay, now I don't need to worry as much. I don't stick out as much like a sore thumb because I have sort of like a fellow buff bro that I can work alongside. Maybe this is that wingman that he's talking about, someone that he can work with. They both like Jeremy, even if they differ on his last name. Or could this be a thing where this tribe, true to the Green Tribe philosophy, is chaotic enough to say, we only need one jacked guy on this tribe, so one of Danny or Josh has to go.
Yeah, I feel like that going out and really like going hard for the idols is a thing that is more likely to get him voted out than something that is going to ultimately save him in the game.
Because that could be interesting, again, compared to Danny. If Danny's just trying to be kumbaya, let's roll with the punches, and then here's Josh going out actively looking for idols. Now they're like, oh, so he can do a bunch of stuff. He's really physically strong, and he has the capacity to find idols. We've already got Danny. Let's vote off Josh.
Okay, let's hear more from Josh.
What's the one thing you told yourself you wouldn't do in this game?
I told myself that I wouldn't let my emotions get the best of me, and I wouldn't let other people play on my emotions. And it's probably easier said than done, but I've seen it before on Survivor. People's play on emotions and tug at that and kind of use that against them. So I need to just keep my eye on the prize and not let people or my tribe mates kind of get me kind of roused up or use certain stories against me with emotions and not let that overcome me. Kind of like what Jonathan was doing with Marianne, and he was kind of getting annoyed with her a little bit and didn't let his emotion. He kept his emotions in check because he knew that would put a target on his back.
Can you come up with your own weird phrase that could be said at a challenge to unlock an idol?
The eye of the tiger is very full. I don't know. They come up with some interesting ones there. It's very cool.
What celebrity or fictional character would you want to come out for a loved one's visit?
I would love to see Usher.
Oh,
I've always been a big fan of Usher, and I always was told I looked like him back in the past. Now I don't think I do, but I'm a big fan. So yeah.
All right, Josh, bring out your twin, Usher.
You're more fraternal than maternal, but I mean, I'll be honest. I may be closer to Akiva on the sides of face blindness, but like I don't really see it just looking at this picture.
Yeah. Maybe not facially, maybe just sort of like a guy with a good physique. Maybe that's you're like an Usher.
Yeah, we'll see if when he's making alliances.
Yeah.
People will be replying with yeah, or if they'll just let it burn.
Yeah. Okay. All right. There is Josh Wilder. We'll see if he can resist being first one out.
Yeah, or get ushered out into Ponderosa very early on. I will say, going back to his bio, he has probably the oddest, most eclectic pet peeve out of this entire cast, Rob. Those who mispronounce salmon.
Well, Josh is not, ever going to mispronounce anything. So
not going to get anything wrong.
He has no grace for people who mispronounce salmon.
He's not friends up with people who say the hard L. So maybe he won't get along with Danny, who does say the hard L when he's calling non-winners losers.
I also liked in his bio that another pet peeve is people who walk slow in front of me. And so as a surgical podiatrist, no patience for people with walking issues.
All right, your gate's a problem. I'm fixing it for you. Come into my office right here, right now.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. I think that Josh, a lot of variance for me.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, to be completely candid with Josh. It's interesting that he brings up like the one thing I won't do is let my emotions get the better of me, because the way Josh comes across in his interview is like so calm and mild-mannered, and maybe that does come from like his bedside manner, and like he talks about like always preparing for something that might come to him. But like, I don't know if that means we'll see a different side of him come out on the beach that he's prepared himself for. I mean, God help if Jeff's like, all right, today you're bringing home 10 freshly caught salmon. Take a look at all this salmon happening right now.
Well, it'd be weird if Jeff suddenly couldn't pronounce salmon.
And God help if anyone catches salmonella from eating some bad food.
Yeah.
Josh might just quit the game right there, right then. See, I'm really not entirely sure, because again, we don't really know a lot about the way his gameplay is structured from his interviews. It just seems like more so he's saying, I want to really focus on the athleticism, build myself up as the provider, and see where we go from there from the merge. That has certainly helped people in the past. We saw Ryan last season. We saw Jonathan, obviously, from the season before. I don't think it's a coincidence that neither one of them ended up winning, though. And I think Josh could be one of those people that when you get to the merge and you just look at him, you could say, yeah, I think we need to get rid of this guy at some point.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he's got an amazing backstory. He seems like he certainly could be a capable player. I don't love like going hard for the idols early on, but the circumstances really dictate so much with the Survivor players.
Yeah, and he also has some really other great elements from his backstory as well. He talks about the hardships of growing up as a gay black kid in Ohio, and he sort of uses that almost in a clear way of like, I've almost always grown up in a setting where like I've had to push against the boundaries that I have been given, which is what Survivor naturally does. So I think he does have like a good head for the game. But let's see over the course of these 26 days if we will see the fall of the House of Usher.
Okay. Mike, one last person to talk about here today.
One last person. We are finishing off with the ship of Soka finally setting sail. A Matt Blankenship.
Okay. Any relation to Ida Blankenship?
Listen, I am not done his 23 and me, his 44 and me. So maybe that'll be his celebrity loved one, not to spoil a future answer.
Okay. All right. So here is Matt Blankenship. And so looks like an interesting guy.
Yeah, exactly. So Matt is a 27-year-old security software engineer. The way he sort of describes what he does is that he is a digital bankroller. He says he basically gets recruited, hired by banks and other large firms to essentially like be the white hat hacker and purposely exploit holes in their security system and then let them know about it. Yeah, it could be keyholes. I looked through a keyhole and I saw some very unsavory things going on there in your bank. But essentially, he then reports those holes to the people that he's hired by to essentially then patch said holes up. So he is all about trying to find vulnerabilities and
starting with, if your bank is locked with a skeleton key, that is problem number one.
Yeah, and going back to Jam Jam, if your password is of your favorite fictional character, maybe throw some letters in there.
Okay. Anything else about Matt Blankenship, hometown Albany, California? I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, he is from San Francisco, so he is a West Coast boy. I feel like we actually don't have a lot of West Coasters this season, which very much was not the case with Survivor, going back to Claire's favorite season of Cook Islands.
Okay. All right, here we go. Matt Blankenship.
Why are you here on Survivor?
I'm here on Survivor mostly for me. It's an internal struggle. I want to sort of prove to myself that I can do this really challenging game. I want to sort of test myself. As a kid, I think I was a lot more afraid of taking risks and afraid of being in front of people or judged by people. And I think I've grown a lot. But this will be like the ultimate test of that, my comfort with discomfort, I guess.
What's your history with watching Survivor?
Yeah. So when I was in high school, there was a girl that I really liked.
Oh boy.
And she introduced me to Survivor. She was like, the show is awesome. We got to watch this. And I loved it. Like, I couldn't get enough of it. And so since then, been watching pretty regularly. And it was a dream of mine to be on the show. So I tried and I made it. Here I am. This is actually happening. So I'm very stoked to be here. I'm stoked to watch myself with my friends who I watch Survivor with. I think that's going to be an amazing moment for us.
Living.
Can someone please Photoshop the jealous girlfriend meme of Matt being the boyfriend, the girlfriend being regular, and then the girl being watched being just Survivor?
Yeah. That the girl that he met, did she show him a picture of the entire cast and say, who do you think is going to win?
And he's like, my God, I'm already in love.
Mm-hmm.
I found love on this season, Jeff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, again, everyone has their way onto the show. Sometimes you watch it through your parents' keyhole. Sometimes you just get asked, point to one of these people. Sometimes you do it to get lucky. We all have our different paths to get our way onto the island at the end of the day.
Yeah. Are you Blankenshipping him with that woman?
Exactly. It feels like a match game that is just yet to be fulfilled.
Bum.
Matt decided to watch Survivor to get in with his girlfriend. In fact, now they're in a Blankenship.
Okay.
Sounds like they're in a mateship.
Yeah.
Maybe that's Charles Nelson Riley.
Yeah, I mean, his glasses are giving a little bit Charles Nelson Riley.
Yeah, maybe. And he kind of has like a fro going on. Maybe he's born out of the 70s. You talked about Ida Blankenship.
she was born in the 1890s. Okay. All right. Here is back to Matt.
Give me one Survivor winner and one non-winner who you identify with the most.
I identify a lot with Yule. I think it was awesome as a person who is part Asian to see an Asian man, out there kicking ass, playing game, and just doing a great job. And he really inspired me to be here. He was one of the people who I saw and was like, wow, that person shares something with me. Maybe I could do this as well. And a non-winner who I identify with, this is going to be a little bit of an out there answer.
Okay.
But Eric Reichenbach, famous for giving up immunity and falling victim to the Black Widow Brigade.
All six of them.
I see some of myself in him. I see he was kind of thrown into the deep end with all of these women, and he was young. He's not really sure how to handle all of these pressures. And I think there's a part of me that can really relate to that feeling of oh God, people want things from me. How can I stand up for myself and not give it to them, or do I just bend over? So I can relate to that, but I hope I don't make the same mistakes.
Living. Well, I think we found out what happened in that relationship that got him into Survivor.
Do I just bend over?
Well, that's a way to describe the Black Widow Brigade getting Eric to give up his idol.
Yeah. I also like that he described Yule as just kicking ass playing game.
Yeah, I mean that's
that's the phrase, right?
Matt is the most, I think, self-deprecating contestant of this season. It gives me a lot of Daniel Strunk vibes in just him being upfront and saying, Yeah, you know what? One of the people I really associate with, a guy who till this day is still mocked and making one of the worst mistakes in Survivor history. I see a lot of myself in him, I'll admit to that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's keep going with Matt.
What's your favorite moment in Survivor history?
Yeah, I think a lot of my favorite moments related to Eric have to do with like momentous blunders, catastrophic errors that people make for whatever reason. So I love that moment in Tribal where, someone busts out the knowledge is power advantage and they're like, I'm gonna take your immunity idol. And then the person's like, I don't have an immunity idol. And all the draws like drop to the floor and it's this big like, oh shit moment. I love that as an audience member. That's like what I live for.
What's one life experience you feel has prepared you most for the game?
I think one of the things that I've had to learn the hard way in my life is that things don't always work out the first time around. And it's tough to put a lot of yourself into something. I'm thinking like I've auditioned for bands or I've applied to colleges or applied to jobs where you put a lot of yourself into this and like put a lot of your hope on how your life will be on this thing, and then they reject you, you fail. And dealing with that, my current job, I applied 3 times and they rejected me each time. And then the 4th time, I finally got the job. So I think that persistence and that ability to like take this moment of defeat and pick yourself up and turn it around and try again will be really important in this game because no matter who you are, there's a moment along your Survivor journey where you're at rock bottom. You feel like nothing is going your way, everything is terrible. And I think that those moments are what separate the really great players from the players who just sort of fold.
What excites
Living. Mike, you gotta try to play the first time like you already had it a second time.
Yeah, like you got horrifically blindsided the first time and you learn from your mistakes. In general, I think that's a fantastic life philosophy. That's something that I usually take away is like, even if things go wrong for me, I still try to walk away with like, well, this is a learning experience. As Jeff Probst would say when Eric got voted out after giving away his immunity, I think that's what you call a life lesson. It's a good general philosophy to have for Matt, and good on him for like keeping his head held up amidst having to apply for things again and again and again, probably feeling like he was running into a brick wall. It's something that I think will help him in this game if he does end up in like a position we saw Owen in last season where just for whatever reason he can never gain traction for more than 1 vote in this game. He at least won't have the ability to like immediately count himself up. But I don't know, the fact that he has undergone so much failure, it's I don't know if the bad luck is just going to be following him into this game as well.
Okay, back to Matt.
What excites you the most about the new era of Survivor?
I love that you cannot know what to expect. There are just so many things that are unheard of and new, and everyone is going into this game, I think, with a fresh sense of what the game could be and what it means to play Survivor. So, if you have a game plan of like, I'm going to play it this way, what could actually happen out there could be totally different because everything has changed and they've thrown in some other crazy thing. And I think that's exciting because I think what that means is they want people to be adaptable. They want people to be making relationships across alliance lines and always playing the game for you. And it just shakes things up and it gives people who are maybe on the bottom a chance to come back and make something new out of whatever the new situation is. So I think it's an interesting era of Survivor that we have entered in. And I'm excited to just test myself with it.
What do you think people will perceive you as?
I think people tend to perceive me as a pretty laid back and like happy, joyful dude. And I think there's a big element of truth to that. That all describes me pretty well. But I think that there's also a level of contemplativeness, I guess, or like, thinking through the things that I say really, really carefully, that people maybe don't associate as much with me. And I'm hoping it stays that way. I'm hoping that ends up being like, people underestimate me as the guy who's here to just have a really fun adventure and like play this fun game, and they won't see how much I'm thinking behind the scenes.
What type of player are you looking for in an alliance?
I think for me, my ideal alliance member is someone with whom I can chat about all of the different options. I think people often get pigeonholed into it's either this person or that person. Like, which one is better? But what I really want is someone who can look at the whole tribe, right? It's not just two people who are vulnerable, it's everyone. And think through all of the different options and maybe come up with creative strategies, or listen to my creative strategies and talk me through them. And I want to be working genuinely with this person. People always put up the deception and the whatever, because I think that's exciting. But at least for the first part of the game, I want someone who I could fully trust with everything I have, and who won't go like rat me out for saying, oh, maybe we should vote out this person. So yeah, I'm looking for a really, really genuine connection, and someone who I feel like we can discuss fully transparently with. And, at some point down the line, we'll have to turn on each other, but we'll get there when we get there.
Living.
Yeah, so I think this is Heidi's partner in crime, in my opinion.
Okay.
Look at the fact that she's a shorter person. This man is a beanstalk, if you've seen the cast photo. She's older. He's younger. They work on opposite coasts. I think it's the perfect match made in heaven here. Heidi wants to be very genuine with the people she makes alliances with, and does not want to say a word to anybody about anything going on. Matt, much like the security systems that he exploits, is lurking for transparency, but also an ability to withhold information from everybody else as well. I could see these two really vibing if indeed this is the criteria they're actually going to use on the beach.
One of the things I liked that he said was about how he's not looking at things as sort of like, in strictly like a binary decision on Survivor. And I really think that that's a lot of times the way that I like to look at problems, like both in life and in Survivor, of like there's more than just like the two options that are available. And so he really is looking for an ally that he can like sort of like, okay, well, what if we tried this? What if we tried this? What if we tried this? So if Heidi could be that person for him, like, and also sort of like rein him in, so he's not talking about that with everybody, like that would be a good outlet for him.
Going back to the perception of it all, I very much see what he's talking about, right? This laid back, happy joyfulness to him. You get that vibe from just the way that he's speaking. And it's not like he's necessarily saying like, but behind the scenes, I'm the Machiavellian brain that's ready to slit people's throats. He is saying like, no, I just tend to be a bit more of a thinker than people make me out to be. So I like that as well. He's not like building himself up as maybe some of the other people on this tribe of like, yeah, I may present as bubbly, as goofy, but actually behind the scenes, I'm going to be making moves. We've talked about how that might get them in trouble. As much as I like Matt, I do not see him being a strategic force in this game, which could work out well for him in an era where those forces tend to get cut towards, that middle end portion of the game.
Okay. All right. More Matt.
How eager will you be to look for advantages in the game?
Very eager.
6 for 6.
This new era is almost defined by advantages. And having an advantage opens up so many doors of possibility for you that it is really doing yourself a disservice in this game to not be looking for advantages. I would expect everyone out there to be looking for advantages because they're so huge. And you wanna have options. at any stage of the game, it's valuable to have multiple things that you could do and be able to choose from them. It's an embarrassment of riches. That's the position I want to be in.
What's the one thing you told yourself you wouldn't do in this game?
One thing that I think is a challenge for me sometimes is I can get into my own head about how people are judging me or how I'm coming off or what should I say, or like this person wants something from me, like I feel like I have to give it to them, like that voice of anxiety and stress and whatever is not my friend in this game. Everyone here is playing for themselves, and I have to do the same thing. So my kind of personal goal for myself is to not get caught up too much in that anxious voice and just be willing to make decisions that are good for me and not feel bad about it. Because everyone here knows it's the game of Survivor, and they're going to try to use my urge to give them things that they want against me. And I can't let that happen.
Living.
Boy, he's really very relating to the Reichenbach of it all.
I mean, this might be the modern day Eric Reichenbach, which, I mean, most of the man did make it to 5th place twice. He generally had good qualities about him. This is going to be tough. I would not.
But can I also just say that? But it also been his favorite moment. When people got knowledge is power. I love that.
Yeah, well, I think it's because he sees himself in it. He's like, oh man, at least
That's
you were
gonna
part.
be me.
At least you were part of the play, rather than sitting in the audience. Yeah, this is where I have reservations about Matt. I mean, not to say that people with anxiety can't play the game. In fact, sometimes that makes you acutely aware and paranoid, rightly so, of stuff that's happening. But when he talks about how his base instincts are to overly give and be a people pleaser and give people what they want, bend over, as he says beforehand, that does make me nervous. How much can he really resist those urges, especially when he is, battered down to just his base instincts once the game really takes underway and he's starving and sleepless?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see with Matt. It's such an interesting person to have here in the cast.
Yeah, because again, he comes across so I don't know, his voice sounds very calm and very laissez-faire, but his brain is apparently the exact opposite. Where constantly at all times he has this little voice in his head. I just feel like it's such a tough thing to do. It's almost like fighting an internal battle as well as the external battle of the entire game too.
Well, he's such an interesting dichotomy of that, professionally, his job is, working for companies to find ways in which their systems can be exploited. And at the same time, he's very concerned that he is a person who is going to be exploited.
Yeah, so he does a great job of identifying his own vulnerabilities. He may be the best person on that cast to do so, as you're mentioning. The issue is then, okay, what's the next step, right? How much are you able to patch up those insecurities? Or are you coming and saying, yeah, I have these insecurities, and I guess I'm just going to have to learn to live with them and hope that people don't take advantage of them?
Okay. All right. Last bit with Matt.
The best advice you received before coming out to play?
My dad told me to trust myself out here. I think, like I said, that voice of anxiety is always there and always kind of talking me down. And at home, I can always turn to my parents or my best friends to talk me out of that negative headspace. But here, it's just me and I have to rely on me. So the advice is just to trust myself and trust that I can do this and trust that I can support myself and just go out there and be who I am bravely.
Can you come up with your own weird phrase that could be said at a challenge to unlock an idol?
The oyster has landed on the moon and the chickens are out.
Damn. What
Wow.
celebrity or fictional character would you want to come out for a loved one's visit?
Maybe I would take Albus Dumbledore. I feel like he is a guy who always knows what to say in just the right moment, and whatever I need in that moment, he would give me. So I'd bring Dumbledore along.
Okay. All right. So some Potterheads around here in this cast.
Yeah, maybe Tori was on the wrong season. She can now go to Danny and
Oh,
Matt and
you
be
kids
like,
Harry Potter?
yeah, you guys like Harry Potter?
Yeah. So who is the person that was hoping that Harry Potter was on the
Danny said that Harry Potter was his favorite. Carson
Mhm.
looks like Harry Potter, and now Matt wants Dumbledore out
Mhm.
there. So yeah, there's a lot of that verse going around. Something that we're talking about someone being averse to. Again, another interesting pet peeve in a manner of speaking. Matt's bio. What is something we would never know from looking at you? Not a fan of peanut butter.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the place where you see it the most.
Yeah, I mean, any port in a storm, I suppose. Unless he's gonna be like when Drea gave up the grilled cheese of like, nah, I don't like it. No, she actually she gave up the peanut butter and jelly too. Did she not?
So
Yeah. So we'll see. I also don't understand this idea of like who looks like they don't like peanut butter. Is there a look to them besides having an EpiPen on them at all times?
I don't know. I mean,
Oh, well,
maybe-
you, sir, with your puffy cheeks and gasping for breath, something tells me you're not a fan of peanut butter.
So I don't know. I love it, Mike. Back in my day, the Heidis I knew used to love it too.
Yeah, that might be the one discrepant point between him and Miss Heidi. But he also talks about, right, that he usually relies on his parents, right, to like help talk out that negative voice. He may find his mom here out in Heidi. So I don't know. I think I'm really manifesting this relationship to happen here.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. That is our 6 members of the Soka tribe.
Yeah, so it's a little tough to figure out like how things are going to shake out. I do feel like there's like a relatively safe group, in my opinion, of actually the first 3 we talked about in Claire, Danny, and Frannie. I could see these 3 kind of working together in some capacity. Claire and Frannie, I think, are both very minded for the game, and I think would be able to back each other up. Danny is someone who seems really unassuming and willing to just go with whatever, that I don't think that's inherently threatening. And then we get to the other 3 who I would imagine if Soka were to go to a tribal council pre-merge would probably be the ones on the chopping block. You have Heidi, who could make a relationship and certainly has, experience, as she says, is the most seasoned member of the cast, but perhaps does stick out for various reasons that could make her an easier target. You do have someone like Josh, who is a physical asset very clearly, but like you said, may present himself as someone who is perhaps overly aggressive in the game with outwardly hunting for idols early on. And then you have somebody like Matt, who comes across as this goofy guy, but has this capacity to perhaps, with this like anxiety, negative self-talk, people-pleasing aspects of him, might end up drawing an unwanted target onto himself. So we'll see how this all ends up. There's a chance, as I mentioned before, like they do seem actually on paper very well balanced for challenges. There's a chance they may not even go to tribal council in the pre-merge, but a really interesting group yet again of people.
Yeah, very interested to see how this group comes together. This idol hunting, maybe challenge winning group could be very chaotic. The chaotic tornado.
Yeah, considering that not only are we going to get an idol at camp, but as I mentioned last time, like we still have Ship Wheels, Sack Rock Island, where now people are going to be going there. And assuming these people are going to be like, hell yeah, I'm pulling it no matter what. I got to get an advantage. And so that's going to lead to like lost votes as well, which could also lead to calamity, as we saw with the last Green Tribe.
So, all right. Very excited to see how it's going to play out. We got one more tribe to talk about. Mike, is there anything you could preview about the 3rd tribe, Ratu?
Yeah, not Rat 3. Rat 2 is our final tribe, our orange tribe of the season. Next time, we are rounding out the cast with its final 6 members. We're talking Brandon, Jamie, Kane, Lauren, Maddie, and not Matt, but Matthew.
Okay. All right. That'll all be coming up on our final tribe preview later on this week. Mike, one of the other things we have coming up this week as well, a big Twish showdown with 3 members that we were talking about from Survivor 42, but a year ago. Marianne, Omer, and Zach will take on the ultimate Twish trivia test coming up on Wednesday night. Very excited for that.
Yes, and I believe so. They do their own sort of Jeopardy style showdown, and then the winner gets to face off with you at the end. If Marianne talked about the structure correctly with me.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see exactly how that's going to play out. We're going to do that Wednesday night live, so be on the lookout
be
for
sure you're boning
that.
up on that. Just remember, it's Jeremy Collins, not Bennett.
Got it. Okay. All right, Mike, what's coming up for you this week?
Yeah, so if you want to get an early jump on RHAP 2, go no further than parade.com, where I already have my interviews with the RHAP 2 members up there. If you want to get a sense as to what they're like in written form, that's all up. And actually, at the time we are recording this is on Monday, I will have finished up my Soka interviews as well. All that's left to post are my Tika interviews, which we already experienced during the podcast. So check all that out at parade.com. Also should have an interview with Jeff Probst coming out in the next few weeks as well, leading up to the premiere. I've also been doing spotty Australian Survivor exit press when Shannon Gus is unable to do so. So I got to talk with the first boot last time, probably talking to a couple of other people, not this coming week, but the next week. So that should be very exciting. And then over on post-show recaps, doing my usual ish, not twish, with The Last of Us, which hit its near halfway point. Actually, Rob, feels very Australian Survivor-esque. We're going to get 2 episodes of The Last of Us within 5 days of each other, basically. Because of the Super Bowl, The Last of Us is dropping episode 5 on Friday instead of Sunday. So you should expect a follow-up to the Kansas City first parter, basically this coming Friday. I'll be recapping it with Grace Leader, and actually something I originally announced is going to be pushed back towards later in the week. Speaking of Survivor 43, I just mentioned his name earlier. I'm going to be getting together for a mid-season feedback show with one Owen Knight from Survivor 43. Owen has been following along with the show, absolutely loves it. And so we're going to use this as an opportunity to sort of check in, get Owen's thoughts on the season so far, hear from people out there as well about how they're feeling about the show, where it could go from here as we round about the back half. Also covering, of course, Heroes with Josh. The Legend of Vox Machina on Amazon Prime is finishing up this week. And I continue to be under the watchful eye of the CBS Viacom umbrella as Star Trek Picard, a franchise, Rob, that you and I love dearly, is premiering next Thursday. Jessica, Lisa, and I are kickstarting our coverage. This is no old jalopy runabout. We're going with the full starship of coverage, weekly coverage of Star Trek Picard's final season, which should be a big one, as it's going to be the Next Generation reunion we were all inevitably waiting to happen. We're going to be doing a kickoff show on Thursday, just reminding everyone what happened in the first 2 seasons, though honestly, you may not need to know it because it does seem like a soft reboot of the series in its final season with eschewing a lot of its former characters. So check that out. Really excited to be getting back in the chair with Jess to talk through that, as well as talking with her and you every week on Tough as Nails, which we are in the back half of as well. So a lot of stuff happening. I talk about it all at a Mike Bloom type on Twitter and Instagram. I'm trying to be more active on Instagram this season. So peep my grams, people. Is that a phrase?
You mentioned Australian Survivor. I'm going to be with our friend Shannon Gus coming up this week to talk about week 2 of Australian Survivor. So be on the lookout for that. And of course, we make it so easy for you to find all things Australian Survivor when you become a patron of Rob Has a Podcast. Go to robhasawebsite.com/patron. Mike, thank you so much for joining us for part 2 of our Survivor 44 previews. We'll be back one more time to preview the last group. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.